for November 12th. The first meeting is to approve our meeting minutes for September 23rd and October 7th.
Move approval of the September 23rd meeting minutes.
Second.
Any changes, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Move approval of the October 7th, 2014 minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Okay, our future meeting dates, we have a meeting scheduled for next Wednesday, the 19th. We were just talking before the meeting, it's a Wednesday rather than a Tuesday. I think that, not sure whether someone was out of town or if it was just a mistake that we picked a Wednesday rather than a Tuesday, but if it's free for everyone, we might as well keep the 19th.
free.
Yeah, I'm free.
We had also scheduled at a previous meeting December 2nd and 9th. The 2nd is the night of the Zoning Board of Appeals hearing on the Randolph Ave 40B, which some of us may want to go to. So we may want to reschedule that date.
Yep.
Maybe we could figure out the 1st or the 3rd offline and confirm it next week.
Well, we need to set a date now because we have to advertise the tax rate
Okay.
classification.
Katie, can you repeat that? So when is the hearing?
December 2nd, which is a Tuesday night.
I can do it the Wednesday.
Wednesday the 3rd. That works for me. Is that good, Dennis? Or Monday the 1st, if not?
Monday the 1st is, I have to make a presentation on the 3rd.
Tom, you good on the
Okay,
1st?
I should be,
December 1st.
Okay, so why don't we schedule it for Monday the 1st?
Okay.
And we'll
And are
keep
we-
Tuesday the 9th.
Are we still okay for the December 9th meeting?
I think so.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And the next item is payroll and vendor warrants.
Move approval of payroll and vendor warrants?
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Citizen Speak. Do we have anyone tonight who would like to address the board at Citizen Speak? Cheryl Feitman.
Hi, thank you, Katie.
Hi, Cheryl.
Cheryl.
As everybody knows, I'm co-chair of Boss Fair Skies Group Milton, and I haven't given an update in quite a while, so I thought I would quickly go through what's been going on. We are going to be having new problems with runway 4L. They're currently testing a proposed RNAV, which is going to be over Milton. It's going to make the fourth RNAV over Milton, and no other town this distance from Logan has four RNAVs over them. And on Monday, Phil Johanning and I and one other person from our group actually had a meeting with Elizabeth Warren's office. We met with her regional director, and we spent about an hour with her, and I'll just briefly tell you what we went over. We told her why we were there. We gave her Massport stats with the number of flights. We showed her the graphic of 15R compared to 4. We also said that we feel that the CAC doesn't provide fairness. We talked about legal rights. How does the federal government override our state right to be free of excessive noise, which is in the Mass Constitution? We talked about environmental justice, and we talked about FAA decision-making and how it affects our health and quality of life. We talked about the LAX health study and the Mass Department of Public Health study, and then we asked them if they would support us in this problem, and she said that she would be speaking to the senator, and I'm going to get back to her at the end of next week to set up a follow-up meeting with them, probably right after the first of the year. And then there's been a press release sent out about this runway use and how they're going to try to minimize noise, but whatever they're going to do is not going to help Milton, because what they'll do is, there will be people in Milton that will still get noise day and night, because what they switch in the morning, people will hear at night, and vice versa. So, again, they're touting this as press, and good press, but it isn't good press for Milton. And last but not least, two senior politicians have been working very hard on our behalf. They did meet with the FAA. They got the FAA to commit to actually coming and having a meeting in Milton, and apparently the FAA is now reneging on that. They will not come to Milton unless the CAC is there and Massport is there. And Milton has to stop relying on the CAC if they want a fair distribution, because there wouldn't be any CAC rep able to protect Milton, because each rep is only interested in their own community, and certainly not one community is going to say, okay, I'll take more planes so Milton can have less planes. It's just not going to happen. So I think we really need to start bypassing the CAC and get some really strong things going on. And one of the things that Belmont has done, the town itself has set up a blog, and it might be interesting if either the town or the town committee set up a blog and publicize it so people can write in their problems and share situations, in addition to the Boston Fair Skies website, which a lot of work has gone into. I don't know if any of you have looked at it, but it's very, very comprehensive, and it gives people a lot of information. And our Facebook page has also been updated, and it's getting hundreds of hits a week now. A couple of weeks, it gets thousands of hits. So people are really becoming aware of it and complaining about the problem. And I actually saw a post this morning. Somebody from Medford said, "This is the first time I saw this site," and she thought it was great. So we're slowly infiltrating into places that also want to be heard.
Thank you, Cheryl. Anyone else for citizen speak? Mr. Gordon.
You'll hear from me later on Milton Access TV, but I just wanted to come up
Marvin, let's just,
first.
I know you're very well known throughout town, but let's just,
Marvin-
Marvin Gordon,
Yes, Marvin
of Gun Hill.
Gordon, Town
Gun
meeting
Hill.
member, Precinct 8,
Thank you.
alumnus of this club. And I wanted to come up to commend the selectmen in the town for the wonderful and inspirational proceeding yesterday for the Veterans Day that took place under the gazebo with a lot of very pertinent and interesting remarks, and also moving remarks about all the people over the many years that have made the ultimate sacrifice and so forth. But it brought to my mind there's something that with all these years, I should have realized it, but I knew, and Milton has, parenthetically, countless art treasures in this town, but I don't think that we all appreciate what we have right here adjacent to the town hall. And I realized that this fall when I was out in Stockbridge and visited the studio of Daniel Chester French, who, if you know what he's done, is the sculptor of Abraham Lincoln statue in the Lincoln Memorial. He is also the sculptor of the World War I memorial that we have right next to the town hall, that's entitled "In Flanders Field." In Flanders Field was one of the bloodiest and most sacrificial events of World War I, and we have Veterans Day, which started as Armistice Day from World War I, and right here in Milton is something that is a phenomenal, in my opinion, knowing what the value is put on his sculpture, phenomenal value of that piece of art that's sitting next to us. So I wanted to bring that to everyone's attention, and hopefully we can publicize it and make better use of it in the future, because it is a piece of art that is, there are many pieces of his art around the country, but Milton is one of the, only a handful of his public works pieces in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So that's all I have to say about it, and I want to again commend the board. We had a very nice ceremony out there, and a lot of interesting facts, and all you have to do is walk in through the front door of the town hall and see the tablets for those who we've sacrificed over various wars, and we lost quite a few in World War I, but even more in the Civil War, when the population of the town was very small. But it was pointed out at the ceremony yesterday that of all the deaths, service and deaths that this country has suffered in the 238 years since the Declaration of Independence, that half of all of those were in the Civil War. So that's what my
Mr. Gordon.
comments on yesterday's
Great.
ceremony. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Marvin.
Anyone else tonight for citizen speak?
Hi.
Good evening.
Good evening. Sorry, it's all written out, so I'm going to seem pretty
We just
formal.
need you to give your name and address for the
Oh,
record.
sorry, my name's Claire Keating, 28 Harlan Street in Milton. I'm a town meeting member and a supporter of the Friends of the Yulin Rink. I, as well as my husband, have been in front of you discussing the deficiencies in public skating at the Yulin Rink. And I'd like to make two comments. One is regarding public skating and one regarding the annual meetings that the town was required to have, sorry, when they signed the contract with DCR. One is under the terms of the contract with DCR that the Town of Milton Selectmen and the Town Council signed. The Town of Milton agreed to remit a public skating schedule each year for review and approval by DCR. The terms can be found on page 6, number 2, under the allocation of ice time in DCR RFP 2010-318. Per the terms of the contract that the Town of Milton and the DCR contract, I'm requesting from the Selectmen a copy of the public skating schedule that DCR approved for each of the years that the town has held the permit. Excuse me. 2, in July 2014, the Friends of the Yulin Rink wrote a letter to DCR alleging that the Town of Milton had violated the permit. DCR in turn requested that the Town of Milton respond to the allegations. The Town of Milton Council responded in a letter dated September 30th, 2014, and I have a question regarding that. On page 6, second paragraph, Attorney Flynn comments on annual meetings. Per the contract that he, along with the selectmen, agreed to in the permitting of the rink, again, on page 7, on the DCR RFP 2010-318, under annual public meetings, the town agreed in summary to, 1, host and lead an annual ice schedule meeting during the month of May. Said meeting shall be open to the public and must be conspicuously advertised at least 1 month in advance and publicized in not less than 1 regional newspaper. And 3, comprehensive meeting notes shall be remitted to the DCR within 1 week of said meeting. In his response to DCR, Town Council referenced a July 2014 annual meeting, as well as other annual meetings where the allocation of ice time was addressed. So I am requesting, 1, the date in which each annual meeting was held, 2, a copy of the newspaper ad where each annual meeting was advertised, and 3, a copy of the comprehensive meeting notes that were remitted to DCR after each annual meeting. I want to thank you for your time. Do you want me to hand you the, kind of the summary of this?
That would be
So you
helpful,
have
yes.
that? Thanks. Great, thank you very much.
Thanks, Claire.
Do we have anyone else tonight for citizen speak? Mr. Bennett?
Bill?
Good evening, Bill.
Madam Chairman, members of the board. My name is Bill Bennett, 37 Westville Road. I'm also a member of the Friends of Yulin Rink, and I'm also a member of the Board of Assessors here in Milton. Friends of Yulin Rink, I'm just have a short statement here. I know you got a busy night tonight, so we also have several questions regarding the Town Council's response to the DCR, but I'm going to forego commenting on that until DCR provides us with the exhibits that Town Council referenced in his response letter. However, the DCR did not provide us with those as we had requested. The Friends of Yulin wrote to the Selectmen on September 16th requesting, among other things, that the Selectmen have someone from outside the town investigate the permitting of Yulin Rink by the Town of Milton, as well as suggesting filing a complaint against Town Council for his role in drafting the contract for the permitting of Yulin Rink. We were a little bit disheartened that the Selectmen decided to engage Town Council to respond to the allegations that the Friends of Yulin Rink made in that July letter to the DCR. Furthermore, as we have noted before, the Friends of Yulin Rink believe that the rink should be operated and managed by the town of Milton, and that we as a group, we have already prepared a management team to operate the facility for the benefit of our residents and our children. We also request that the town planner be removed from the process, as in our opinion, there appears to be a conflict of interest. It is our belief that neither the town planner nor town council has acted in the best interest of the people of Milton. We request that you, the selectmen, appoint an individual who has the best interest of the taxpayers in mind as the town's representative in dealing with the future management of Yulin Rink. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill.
Bennett. Is there anyone else tonight for citizen speak? Yes, sir. Again, if you could state your name and address for the record.
My name is Timothy Hoey. I live at 43 Randolph Ave in Milton. I'm also a friend of the Friends of Yulin Rink. I just very disappointed in the way the town has handled this, the management of the rink and the oversight that has been performed with Carrie's management. Public skating, I think, is a very important part of the youth of Milton. It's as important as baseball. You guys manage the fields. It's important as basketball and football. It's very hard to run a rink profitably, I know that, but I don't think profit should be the motive of the rink. It should be for the youth of Milton. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for citizen speak tonight? Okay, then if not, we will go on to a meeting with the Executive Director of the Forbes House Museum, Robin Tagliaferri.
Hey, Robin.
Hello.
Hello, Robin.
Well, thank you very much for having me again. This is the second time that I think I've come to address the Board of Selectmen. I thank you for the opportunity.
We're delighted to have you, especially with this big anniversary year going on.
Yes, very much so. So we have our 50th anniversary. As you know, that the museum was founded in 1964 by Crosby Forbes. And so we have been doing a year of celebration and some extra programming and some other great things. And I put together just a few points that I just wanted to go through very quickly to just give you a little bit of an idea of what we have been up to. So I have, almost hot off the press, is an annual report from the Forbes House Museum. And we had a very great annual meeting at the Council on Aging a month ago. And we're happy to report that we have completed architectural and engineering studies of the 1833 mansion and are in process of addressing a number of important things to begin to renovate the old girl, as they may say. And so tentatively, we have a plan for this spring to start to renovate the north and the south porches of the mansion. So that will be a very great thing for folks to be able to utilize and access those porches for the summer. So we're looking forward to beginning in that regard as well. And so then we wanted to just go over, I have a few other things that I thought would be of interest. One of them actually is a great initiative that I would say probably about 2 years ago, Brian Doherty of the Milton Historical Society and I were talking about how can the nonprofits in Milton speak and communicate with each other. So in August, we had our very first meeting. We had 25 guests come to the Forbes House, and we started to communicate and to collaborate. And one of the thoughts was that, gee, we have so much going on in Milton, wouldn't it be great to have some kind of a calendar? So lo and behold, we now have a Milton Nonprofits calendar. It is presently uploaded to the Milton Times website and to My Town Matters. And for sure, I must thank Brian Kelly and Frank Schroth for putting together the technology of all of that. So if you were to go on either of those two news websites, that you would find all of the events of quite a number of organizations. So for example, we have Milton Historical Society, Forbes House, Kiwanis Club of Milton, We Are Milton, Milton Farmers Market, Friends of the Milton Library, Curry College, Wakefield Estate, Blue Hills Observatory, the Rotary Club, and we've added on a few others as well. So we have St. Mary's of the Hills, and recently the Friends of the Blue Hills has joined us as well. So please do, we're going to keep expanding. And one of the thoughts is that we may like to found a 1 day, a 1 week, a 1 weekend, where we all try to do something together in tandem. So, so hopefully we can get that to work. So we're going to have our 3rd meeting in January. Of course, the other great thing, part of our 50th anniversary, is that one of our gifts back to Milton is this exhibit. It's at least going to be on view through February. There are 27 works of art from the Mary Bowditch Forbes collection. So you may know that she was our stellar Milton resident who loved President Lincoln, to the degree where she even built an exact replica of Abe Lincoln's log cabin in the backyard. So upstairs on the 2nd floor of the library, there is this exhibit that will take place through February. And in conjunction with that, it's time again to pick the topic for the Lincoln Essay and Drawing Contest. And we engage all Milton public, private, parochial school students to join us in submitting a drawing or an essay. So before Thanksgiving, we usually release the topic, so that will be coming along as well. One thing is that we will end off our 50th anniversary with a very great celebration on the 24th of January. We figure that Christmas and Hanukkah and all of those great celebrations that take place in December may be too hectic. So on the 24th of January, we're going to have a 50th anniversary end gala that will be happening. So that will be taking place as well. And then I close with this very important project. You may know, or some may know, I know that many here at the table will know, that the Forbes House Museum is connected to the Great Irish Famine. And there is a great history, and actually almost a 50-year history of this. In 1967, Crosby Forbes put together an exhibit that was held at the museum. This is the actual catalog that goes with the exhibit. And in essence, what he did was he connected his forefather, Captain Robert Bennett Forbes, as a man who helped to make a humanitarian voyage to County Cork during the Great Famine. So this project is one we've been working on for about 3 years. We've been collaborating with the Charitable Irish Society, the Irish Society, and to date we are looking at the year possibly of 2017 of actually trying to send some of Captain Forbes's artworks to County Cork as a friendship gesture. Wow. So it's quite an undertaking. But we presently are doing research with folks like Dr. Catherine Shannon from Westfield State University and some from over the pond. Neve O'Sullivan, Christine Keneally are also jumping on board to this project. And in essence, the story is that in February of 1847, a group of businessmen got together at Faneuil Hall, and they decided that they needed to do some action to assist folks with the famine. That at this point of the winter in 1847, that there were no soup kitchens, there were no resources to help people, and it was probably the height of the famine. The businessmen, the clergy, the community leaders got together and decided that they were going to take a humanitarian voyage to County Cork. So Captain Forbes, the tenacious one as he is, decides that he's going to go to the Charlestown Navy Yard, load a military ship, of course with permission, a military ship filled with 800 tons of food that then sailed to County Cork in Ireland in the spring of 1847. And so that is the connection between Milton and the famine, and we want to keep growing this story so that everyone can know about this great, great venture that Captain Forbes embarked upon.
He went 2 times, right?
A second ship left from New York. Yeah. He thought he was going to make 2 voyages, Dennis, but he ended up making 1. And of course, as you know, that we have many gifts from the Irish at the museum that were given to Captain Forbes as a thank you gesture for doing this humanitarian voyage. So slowly we're going to start to roll out stories about all of the aspects, including the fact that a Navy ship was lended to this group to actually make the voyage out to County Cork. So you can imagine Congress saying, okay, you can have a ship to use as you like. But that's exactly what happened. So we're looking for everyone to keep their ears open for all of these stories, and eventually want to give everyone the great message that Milton did help in the Great Famine. So, and with that, I think that's about everything that we have going on. So only a few things of many.
Quite a bit.
Yes, it keeps us
busy year.
busy. Very busy year, yes.
Well, even without the big anniversary celebration, the Forbes House is always a wonderful place to visit, especially for
Yes.
kids to go and see it for the first time.
Absolutely. So the other interesting thing as well is in this 50th celebration is that we realize what a wonderful collection we have. And we're realizing what a great property is there on Milton Hill, and how do we begin to make plans to share it with everyone. So we'll see. Stay tuned, as they say.
Wonderful.
Thank you,
Thank
Robin.
you very much.
Thanks, Robin.
Thank you for your time.
Appreciate you taking the time and coming in to
Oh,
update
my
us.
pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, the next item on our agenda was going to be the Airplane Noise Advisory Committee meeting. We have been asked to move up the discussion on the MPEG contract, which is number 11, because Marvin Gordon, who's the treasurer of MPEG, asked to come in and say a few words. So Marvin, welcome back to the table.
Thank you. I didn't mention it a few minutes ago when I was stating I was a town meeting member.
Marvin,
But I
before
am
you
also the clerk of the Corporation of Milton Access Television.
Marvin, before you start, why don't we put a motion on the table?
Sure.
So that'll kick off
Okay.
the discussion, because the discussion is, the item on the agenda is the extension of the contract.
I'm actually going
And-
to recuse myself from this, Katie, because I am on the board of
Okay.
the MPEG committee.
Okay.
So-
Okay. So I'll move to approve the contract for renewal between the town of Milton and MPEG Access through October 16th, 2018.
I will second the motion. And Mr. Gordon?
Yes.
Happy to hear your thoughts on this.
One thing, I love the town of Milton, as you perhaps have guessed, I've been involved in a lot of things in it, but I've had a lot of fun, and I think we've accomplished a lot in Milton Access Television. And I'm very pleased that Bernie Lynch, who's the president of Milton Access Television, asked me to be on the board about 10 years ago, plus or minus. And in the last few years, I've been clerk of that corporation. But early on, while the Milton Public Schools was finishing their major construction phase, and was considering the use of different spaces that they had, I had discussions early on with Mary Gormley when she was an assistant superintendent, and then when she was acting superintendent, and now, but way back about how Milton Cable could fit in with the public school system. So knowing that this was coming up tonight, I had discussions with her last week about this, and she wrote me a letter, which I'll distribute one copy to each member of the board, which just so that
Thank you.
those in the audience here today and on watching this on television, the few that may be, I'm going to read that letter into the record, and that's basically all I have to say, unless you have some questions on it. And it's addressed to me, and it goes as follows. On behalf of the Milton Public Schools, I am writing to endorse the continued use of Milton Public Education and Government Programming, MPEG, for the town of Milton. Since MPEG's introduction to the town several years ago, the Milton Public Schools, Town Hall, and other community groups have benefited from having our local meetings and events covered by the talented professionals at the Milton Access Television. Representatives from MAT are present at school committee meetings, Board of Selectmen meetings, and cover all important school events. Milton Public Schools worked closely with Mr. Michael Lynch in his current role as Executive Director of Milton Access Television. Mr. Lynch is an asset and advocate for Milton residents, small businesses in the area, and he takes pride in keeping Milton residents informed. I enthusiastically supported Milton Access's television's move to the new office at Pierce Middle School. As part of his continued partnership with the Milton Public Schools, Mr. Lynch works with our high school and Pierce Middle School students to teach them every aspect of producing television. At Pierce Middle School, Mr. Lynch has led an after-school PASS class where students learn how to run camera equipment, run the control room, write scripts, and do final cuts. I believe that Milton Access Television has been a tremendous asset to the town of Milton and the Milton Public Schools. I look forward to working with them in the future. And I want to put that into the record and for benefit of anybody who's listening. And I thank you for the motion to renew our contract.
Thank you very much.
That's all I have to say, unless you have any questions.
No, we certainly echo those comments, and we know MPEG does a great job in public access compared to what it was before MPEG. We all remember that too, and MPEG has done a wonderful job, I think. And there's still more to be done, but I know the MPEG board is committed to doing that, and I'm sure they will.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marvin. Yeah, as everyone knows, we put the matter out for public comment, and we closed the comment period several days ago. And I do know of 2 comments that came in, and I have passed them along to Mike Lynch. And generally positive. The one commenter did identify an opportunity to reach the under 40 crowd, and thought that a lot of programming is good and directed. Some of it is directed towards an older community of viewers, but that there's probably a great opportunity to reach, or more of an opportunity to reach than people under 40, and that was probably one of the main comments. Others I've passed along to Mike Lynch, who's here tonight, as well as several members of his board. So unless we have any, we have a motion pending, unless we have anything further to add, then all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you. Wait for Dennis to come back into the room. And then the next item will be a meeting with our Airplane Noise Advisory Committee. We're all set, Dennis. We can pull up an extra chair, too, if we need it.
How's it going?
Hello.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. Just a few words. My name is Roxanne Musto. I'm the co-chair of the Airplane Noise Advisory Committee. Along with Dennis Cohane, the 2 of us are co-chairs. It's a jointly appointed committee for those watching at home between the Board of Health and Board of Selectmen. And up here to my left is Caroline Kinsella, the Director of Public Health for the town, Health Director, and Cindy Christensen, who is on our committee as well. And first I want to thank all of the committee members that are on our committee. I think they've worked really hard. We've been having some long meetings, some very technical, and Cindy has offered a lot of help with that end of things, as well as Chris Zambuto, who is our CAC rep, so I wanted to thank them for that. Most recently, we've been meeting to address the possible implementation of the 4L RNAV, and in the process, we're also been looking at all of the routes over Milton. We are really concerned about putting more routes over the town. Our RNAVs are like highways in the sky, so concentrated flight paths, and with that come potential health risks for residents in town, and we're very concerned about that. And it doesn't matter where you'll be in town, location-wise, because everybody is somehow going to be infected by all of these routes over town. and we're very concerned about that. I know that Caroline has something to read, and Cindy will have some things to offer, but, I think that all in all, our approach really has to be multifaceted on how we approach this issue. We, as a committee, met and talked about all the different options of what we could potentially do. And again, we're an advisory committee to the Board of Selectmen. So we took a vote on our last committee meeting about potentially filing an injunction against the FAA to help slow down this process, because we feel that things like environmental assessments haven't been done, and population assessments under these RNAVs are two of the issues in particular. And the other thing that we talked about was trying to get a meeting together for the residents of Milton and have congressional leaders come so that they can hear directly from the residents what our issues are with this. And we really urge the Board of Selectmen to consider all of the suggestions that we're going to talk to you about, which include an injunction, and talk with town council about that. Our committee voted unanimously for that, to consider that. So we really urge you to consider that. And I'll open it up.
You said a lot that I'm going to say. I'll just give it a little overview. The Airplane Noise Advisory Committee is recommending the selectmen take action to consult town council and file an injunction against the FAA. The FAA, in a memorandum dated May 1st, 2013, approved a proposed project test of a non-public RNAV visual flight procedure by JetBlue aircraft for runway 4L arrivals to be used during visual flight conditions. Before implementing this runway, the Airplane Noise Advisory Committee would like a review of relevant air traffic noise screening models and environmental review. A reasonable disagreement exists over the project's risk of causing environmental pollution and an impact on Milton residents' health and quality of life. And we've heard from many Milton residents about their quality of life living underneath the flight paths. And in addition, having letters written and the senator involvement is what we need. So, do you have anything else to say, Cindy?
I'll just say this. Roxanne mentioned the multifaceted approach, and I think it's the only way that any community in the country knows how to do. I think of this as like there's this giant key ring, and we have no idea which key is going to open the door for some relief in this town, but we have to try many of them. And I'm afraid that litigation is probably what's helped most towns. I also wanted to mention distribution of airplanes over Boston is a zero-sum game. Another name for zero-sum game is a strictly competitive game. And I like that term better than zero-sum because it's descriptive. What it says is that it's a competitive means of trying to distribute noise. And right now, Milton's losing. There's no other town as far away from the airport as Milton is that has 4 RNAVs over it. We get over 37% of the arrivals when the wind direction says we should get about 18. It's just not fair. I'm also extremely concerned about some recent health studies that indicate these ultrafine particulates that the EPA doesn't even at this point have a minimum or a maximum standard for safety set at. They're all over the town. They stay underneath because the planes are so low. They stay underneath the 3,000. The particulates stay underneath the 3,000 square feet, and it's just it's a health crisis that's almost unseen at this point, but cannot be ignored, in my opinion. So thank you.
Okay. Does the board have any comments or questions for the committee?
In terms of an injunction, is there any experience with any other town that has tried to enjoin the FAA from doing anything? Is the committee aware? Has any other city or town tried to enjoin the FAA from an action? And how successful has it been?
Well, one success story is Brookline. They're equidistant from Logan as we are. They have 0 RNAVs over them. even though the 27 departures head due west and should fly over Brookline. Instead, they turn southwest and fly over Milton. And they litigated, I don't remember the year, the late 90s, I believe.
That's actually a well-known fact out there, that, you know, if any plane goes over the town of Brookline, there's a federal lawsuit filed immediately. And hence the reason for no planes flying over Brookline presently. I guess, Emery, when you met with Massport last year, one of the comments was that Milton has been asleep at the wheel. Is that correct?
Yes, that was one of the comments
That
that
the
I...
reason so many planes are flying over Milton is because we haven't complained about it.
That's correct.
So it's beginning. This is the complaint period now. And I really want to commend my fellow board members. I want to acknowledge the amount of work that these people have put into this noise committee. In particular, Cindy, who's a statistician by profession, and she has come up with statistics that, you know, we really need to sit down with Massport and the FAA to present these statistics to them. I think the other board members would agree that once they find out these statistics, when you say 36% or 37% of
The arrivals.
planes flying over Milton when the wind does not suit, when 18% of them should be landing on a different runway.
That's because of the use of the force?
Correct.
And this is one of the real dangers with this 4L RNAV. You can almost see the FAA salivating with this RNAV, because what they're going to have are two parallel runways. They're the second and third longest runway at Logan, and they're going to be able to land however many planes they need to during peak times, and they can charge more for those. They can get people to, you know, their gates on time, which there's incentives, financial incentives for doing that. So it's really, they're going to want to use this RNAV. The other thing that we know is this 4L RNAV is they're already talking about changing it from just a simple RNAV to a souped-up version. I call it a Cadillac version, which would allow even more planes, less separation between the planes, to land on the 4L.
And the other thing is, it seems that Logan is continuing to grow, so, you know, it's a fallacy to think that they might shift them from one runway to another, from 4R to 4L or whatever, because realistically, they're going to use both of them, and they're just going to keep adding flights on if they can. So, you know, and we talked about at what point will Logan say we're not going to, you know, add more flights, but I think it's, you know, not there yet.
Larger airplanes.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's a problem.
Cindy, what was that statistic again about the prevailing wind? Like a lot of the takeoff should be on 33L over
well,
Medford, is that correct?
Somerville, Medford, so we get about 37% of the arrivals, even though the winds, this is according to Massport, the winds are favorable for using the 4s 18% of the time. We also get the arrivals when the winds are southeast, when they should be using the 15s. And the 15s are used about 2% of the time for arrivals. Those pathways fly over basically the neighborhood of Capuano.
That's correct.
In
2%.
Somerville. 2%. So we're getting, you know, if you add the 18 and the 17 for the northeast and the southeast winds, you basically get what we get, as opposed to splitting that up between the 4s and the 15s.
The arrival side.
On the arrival side. And it really is a safety issue. You know, that the last meeting, Dennis and Chris, who are both were both there and are pilots, talk about the crosswinds, and that it really is, you know, you're supposed to land and take off into the wind. And they're not doing that because they prefer to use the 4s.
Now, they've said, and I know back about, was that a year ago when when Massport was here? And, well, actually, it wasn't Massport. It was when the congressmen were here, and that a lot of that was pilot choice. That the pilots have the ultimate choice in the end as to what runway to use.
They can. They have to stop all the other, the tower-initiated runway decisions, and they will do it in an emergency. So a pilot can say, you know, I need to land on 4s, even though they're using the 15s at the time, because for safety reasons, they have to do that if there's an emergency. But the decisions of which runways to use are made by the FAA, and they don't switch them easily. I mean, they will for an emergency. So I heard that statement too, and I believe it was wrong. The problem with the way the FAA is operating is actually a federal agency that's completely out of control. They have this vehicle called a categorical exclusion, and they use it for everything. And what they're doing is they can do a categorical exclusion if whatever they're planning on doing is quite similar to what they're currently doing. So I think of it as they inch their way up to whatever they want to do. When we had the problems with the noise from the 27s in March of 2013, it's because they had done a categorical exclusion and told nobody about it. But what they did was they changed the flight path. They started bothering many more people in Milton, but no one had to, the FAA didn't have to tell us that because they filed under a categorical exclusion. That's what they're doing with the 4L, and they will continue to inch their way towards what they want to do using this categorical exclusion. It's their pattern.
I was going to say, I think the other important thing that people have said, you know, obviously potential health risks, and also home values. That's a big concern. We've had people come in and talk to us about that as well. So I think from the town's perspective, that's an important concern as well.
So I think this might be something we want to take under advisement and have some follow-up in the next few days or week or so with our town council, who is here in the room, so has heard your comments tonight. And maybe we can ask the town administrator to have a follow-up discussion with town council, and maybe that more information is needed from some of you, or conversation with some of you, so I'm sure you'd be willing to help with that as needed. I also want to recognize Darrell Warner's here also. He's a member of the committee, and this is a committee that's working very hard, so we appreciate all your efforts.
And the other important thing I think to say would be to see if the town could also try to reach out to, you know, Capuano, Warren, Lynch, and so forth, and try to see if we can set something up for a meeting with them. As you know, we're saying we want to do multifaceted approach, and I think that's important as well. So.
And Michael Blanchard, our assistant town administrator, is aware of this, and he's going to try and reach out over the next week or two.
Good.
Because we don't want to delay on moving this forward. We'd like to have a meeting before the end of the year with the leadership in Washington.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions or comments? Other than to thank you for all your work. And we'll do some follow-up on this.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Thank you very much. All right. The next item on our agenda is a discussion of the Yulin Rink. And we're going to be joined by John Flynn, our town council, and Bill Clark, our planning director.
Is it hot or is it me?
Crack the window behind you.
Not the right one, the left one.
Do you have time? You okay?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Good evening, John. Good evening, Bill.
Good evening.
Thank you both for coming in tonight to talk with us about this. There is one in the package.
There's one in the
Should be a
packet.
I can see his friends, but I don't see our letter.
Oh, our letter. I just brought a paper copy of it.
There was one that was.
What, separate from this? Yeah, I probably did. I just don't have it with me. It might be. I'm not sure.
All right, so what's the best way we should approach this? We have a letter that we've received from a group that's several members of whom have spoken earlier at Citizen Speak tonight. The Friends of the Yulin Rink have sent in a letter to the board as well as to the DCR, and Town Council, as was said, has sent a letter on behalf of the board responding to the DCR with some answers to questions and some information. And maybe we could start with that and maybe summarize what some of the issues are and what the situation is. And then Bill, and we should not fail to recognize Tom's efforts on this, has also been very involved with the Yulin Rink. So I think Bill has been the board's point person for a number of years, but Tom probably knows more than anyone else about this as well.
Could I make
Tom,
a
how would you like to
suggestion,
start?
Rich?
Yes.
I'll give a brief overview of the relationship, because it might not be clear to a lot of members of the public. And then at the request of the board, respond to 3 questions that were asked in the letter from the Friends. To the extent it gets into specific details, it's probably more appropriate for Tom or Bill to, Mr. Hurley or Bill Clark to respond.
Okay, that sounds good.
As far as an overview of the Yulin Rink situation goes, it's a state facility run by the MDC, now known as the DCR. In the early 2000s, or in 2010, DCR issued a request for proposals for someone else to operate a series of MDC rinks, as we used to call them, DCR rinks, one of which was Yulin Rink. Milton responded to that request for proposals, but before we did, we asked a couple of questions, the most important one of which was, could we, Milton, subcontract or sub-permit the management of the rink if we were successful? DCR answered yes, you could. So Milton submitted a request for proposals, and I should add that the DCR's invitation essentially gave a preference to the local communities in which the rinks were located. They expressed that preference. And so when the Board of Selectmen found out that the board could subcontract the management of that if successful, then submitted a proposal. Milton was selected and was awarded a 5-year permit by the DCR to operate the rink. The selectmen chose to approach that with a 3-year contract in the beginning and a 2-year contract after that. I can't speak for the selectmen at the time, but I think the reason was it was a fairly new concept. Milton was not in the business of running athletic facilities and wanted to see how it went. That was in 2010, and in 2013 issued another request for proposal and it's entered into a 2-year contract. The letter that the chairman referred to is a September 16, 2014 letter from the Friends of the Yulin Rink. And there are essentially 3 legal issues in that, and some other issues that, as I mentioned earlier, but the first issue was that the DCR, the Department of Conservation and Recreation, did not grant written approval for the second contract, which was the 2-year contract entered into in 2013. What happened there was that when the first contract was issued, the town, through then Town Administrator Kevin Murren, asked DCR whether they would approve the contract. And the answer was no. The requirement that, in response to a question from Milton about whether Milton could subcontract it, DCR said, it's all right to subcontract or sublease or subpermit the arrangement as long as whoever you the subcontract or subpermit to is qualified. But they specifically told by email the town that no, we, DCR, don't have to sign that contract. I think that understanding passed on to the second contract, so DCR did not sign it and was not asked to sign it because they had already told Milton that we don't need to sign it.
I believe, John, from the award letter, they made it clear that we were able to do that, and,
Yes.
and they said that all they really wanted was to know who the
Yes.
the sub-permittee would be, and that was it.
And at the time of that award of the first contract, they specifically approved Curry College, by the way.
Just to that point, even though from what your letter and the exhibits attached to it indicate that even though, as you said, DCR didn't sign the contract itself, they did sign a separate document. There was a consent
award.
to the college managing it.
Yes.
Okay, just wanted
Yes.
to make sure we were clear on that.
The second issue was that the town of Milton, and again, I'm referring to the September 16, 2014 letter. The second issue was that Milton didn't require Curry to adhere to the mandatory non-negotiable priorities regarding allocation of ice time at Ullin Rink. I'm reading from the letter. The first request for proposals both requests for proposals incorporated the requirements of DCR. And Curry College, which has been the contractor under both contracts, understood that. Now, I understand that from the user group meetings and from everything, it was made clear, not just to Curry, but to everyone who was going to rent ice time at Milton, that here's the requirement from DCR as to who gets priority in ice time, and that priority has been followed then and now. I understand that there were two exceptions to that. One was that the rink opened early this year, in August, I believe, instead of September, and that perhaps the priority of time wasn't followed then, but it was technically before the formal opening of the rink. I'm told that once the rink opened, that the allocation of ice time will continue to be in accordance with the RFP. And the second exception is that your two hockey-playing schools in Milton, Milton High School and Curry, both use Ullin Rink. And I understand that during tournament times, both of them are good teams, and they both have qualified for the tournament during the 4+ years, the first 4 years of the contract arrangement. And that during that time, there had to be some readjustment of ice time, but I understand that that was made plain to the user groups, and perhaps that wasn't a technical compliance with the allocation of ice time, but that it was just agreed upon, kind of there was no place else for them to go, really. And so that's an exception to it. But with those two exceptions, I understand that the ice time has been in accordance with the state's requirements.
You said it was in technical compliance?
Yes, because, it was an unforeseen event that you had Milton High and Curry qualify for the state tournament. They needed ice time, so they used time at Ullin, which may or may not have been normally assigned to someone else, but that with those two exceptions, I understand that the allocation of ice time has been followed. The third issue is that, and I'm reading from the letter again, the town of Milton gave Curry a contractual benefit of $520,000, initially $550,000, that was not made known or available to any other bidders or potential bidders in the original RFP or otherwise part of the bidding process. And it goes on to say that if that continues, it might reduce the number of future bidders for operation of the rink, et cetera, which would give Curry an unfair advantage in future bidding processes to the detriment of the taxpayers of the town of Milton. The situation there is this. Ullin Rink was in horrific shape, to be blunt. One reason DCR, former MDC, put out the RFP was to see if the private operation of it could produce a better result. I recall at the time of the first negotiation that, and the Milton's RFP, there was an understanding then there was at least a $300,000 shortfall, as I recall, in the operation of the rink before the bids were put out, before the request for proposal was put out. Now, it's true that the Milton request for proposals did say that the successful proposer would be responsible for maintaining and repairs, but it also asked for a capital plan from each of the bidders. Now, for the first go-around, there were two proposals. And each of them addressed the capital needs of the rink. The Board of Selectmen at that time chose to go with Curry because they had already informed the DCR that, and presented Curry to them. The Board of Selectmen and DCR had determined, and DCR had consented that Curry College was qualified to run the rink. In their judgment, they felt that Curry was the more qualified of the two proposers. Curry proposed a bunch of capital improvements to the rink that were acceptable to the Milton Board of Selectmen, and but in essence asked that if to be made whole for those investments, or excuse me, for its net operating loss of revenue, if Milton contracted with someone else other than Curry College. It is what it is. I can't comment on the mindset of the Board of Selectmen, but I do know that the timing of the situation then, the reality of the condition of Hewlin Rink, and the desire to follow through on the proposal that the town had submitted led them to make the judgment that Curry was the best opportunity to provide this public amenity, and they went with Curry. I should say that there's a misconception in the letter to the Board of Selectmen. Hewlin Rink is not an asset of the town of Milton. It's a public asset. It's a state-owned asset. And the award letter made it very plain to the town of Milton that it was a public asset, that it was be made available to the public. And DCR particularly instructed Milton not to give preference either to Milton Youth Hockey, Milton High School, or any Milton group. So it is not literally a situation where in running this rink and in permitting and in entering into a permit relationship with DCR, that Milton is protecting the taxpayers of the Board of Selectmen and the town government are protecting the taxpayers of Milton. It's a public asset. The town took quite a risk in entering into this arrangement because you'll see in the documents that it was basically the state could have terminated that permit at any time with rather short notice. And with that understanding and with the information that became available about the structural situation at Hewlin Rink, the Milton Board of Selectmen took a risk on this, but you should be aware that this is at no cost to the taxpayers of the town of Milton. This rink is operated by Curry, the successful proposer, with no payment from the town of Milton. So those are the three questions in the letter. There are some other issues in there that either because of their specific nature or because of their technical grounding that I think would be more appropriate for Mr. Hurley and Mr. Clark to, but that's my effort to give an overview of what the contractual relationship there is in the situation when the permit was awarded to the town of Milton and when the two contracts were issued. And if the Board of Selectmen, after investigation, has a problem with it, I did sign both contracts. I wasn't pressured to do so by anyone, and I'll stand behind that decision. But I can't really speak for the Selectmen, but I was more involved with the first go-around than the second, and I do recall those facts that I've related to you.
Thank you, Mr. Flynn. Bill Clark is here, and Bill, you're our main point person, I guess is the right way to describe you on this. And this is really, the Hewlin Rink is a recreational facility, so this is really a park and rec area, but the Selectmen a number of years ago, for whatever reason, decided to take this on, and so this has fallen under the Board of Selectmen, and the question is who at Town Hall is the appropriate day-to-day management person to put in charge of this. And
before Bill even starts,
it just fell into Bill's lap because there really was nobody else to do it. incredibly. So, so it's not really a planning function, Bill, we recognize that it's not really within your job description, but you've been working on this for a number of years, and I know you've spent a lot of time on it.
Before
Wanted
Bill
to add
starts,
that.
in terms of, well, a bunch of things, but first of all, the reason the town got involved was we found out very late in the game that the rink was going out for a permit, and it was just totally unbeknownst to the selectmen at the time. I wasn't on the board at the time. We did scurry around. The concern was that the rink would be privatized, and under private operations, the rates would go up, and thought it would be a disservice to the town. I mean, that's my understanding of the thought process of the selectmen at the time. By the time the RFP, we responded to the RFP, got the award letter, went out to Curry, or went out for RFPs for the management of the rink. It was within a month or two of having to open the rink, and I mean, time was crucial. And decisions had to be made, otherwise that rink would not have opened. In terms of who should run it, the Parks and Recreation would have been the logical choice. They didn't want to do it. They didn't have any knowledge of how to run a skating rink any more than the selectmen did, and they kind of stayed away from it. So it kind of is what it is, as John said. What Bill pick up in terms of what's happening.
DCR tried to put there's 5 rinks that are lumped in with Ullin. They tried to put that RFP out in March of 2010. When the town of Milton started pressing the issue of looking at Ullin, the other 4 went out, and we kept pressing. We wanted more information. We held up the release of Ullin until almost June of that year.
2010.
Of 2010. By the time we made a submittal, June 23rd of 2010, that finally gave the response of the town of Milton to the Commonwealth's proposals for ice skating rink operation, management, and maintenance. It in on June 23rd. Just by making it as late as June 23rd, the agreement was that the rink would have had to have been opened the Tuesday after Labor Day. And the longer it took DCR to respond, the longer it was going to take us. We had already talked to, and we have all kinds of letters that go back and forth between then Commissioner Sullivan from DCR. And we asked every conceivable question about the rink itself. We talked about why they were even doing this, and there were comments in there. In these difficult economic times, with DCR facing significant budget reductions and personnel layoffs, an annual operating loss of $334,000 is not sustainable or prudent. We did get DCR at the request of Senator Joyce to extend the RFP deadline until the final passage of fiscal year 2011 budget on June 30th. But again, we put our response in on the 23rd of June. I think we hit all of their salient points. They actually gave us a letter that awarded the rink to us in July. We had questions in there that specifically went to the issue of having somebody run it for us. On July 23rd, they gave us back the answer. Thank you for your submittal, for taking the time out to meet with DCR. They gave it back to us, and as John said, they did put certain language in here. The permittee hereby agrees to operate in accordance with the DCR mission and agrees to operate and manage the facility as a statewide ice skating rink made available to all members of the general public and shall not provide preference to any one municipality, organization, or group. The permittee hereby agrees not to provide preference or preferential treatment to residents of the town of Milton or to Milton Youth Hockey except as provided by law. Furthermore, the permittee agrees to comply with the allegation of ice time to user groups of the above-mentioned RFP. And that was from the ice schedule of 2009-2010. That 2009-2010 agreement is the basis for each year since then for ice time allocation. The issue of public skating. DCR didn't open for public skating until the Friday after Thanksgiving. They still don't open for public skating in their rinks until the Friday after Thanksgiving. Since Curry's had it, they have had these days. They started a big hoopla when they put up the September dates, and they only listed Wednesdays. And that was starting September 3rd. Per all of the documentation we have, we didn't have to take and open the rink until October. But because of the schedules that take place with Milton Youth Hockey, Curry felt that it was advantageous to get the rink open, get the kids in there skating early. So they started skating the Tuesday after Labor Day, which means they had to start making ice the third week in August in order to get it down right.
So, Bill, it sounds like you're saying that the Wednesday schedule, which I know generated a lot of controversy back in September, was prior to the time the rink normally would have been required to open.
Yep.
So
Just because those dates were available at the
They
time.
just made them available. For people to say that they're not down there, there were 10 people in there today, and that was about 12:30. There's people there. Every time we have public skating available, there's people in there. It's a really interesting mixture of people that are in there.
presumably it was adults using it at 12:30 on a
It's a
Wednesday.
bunch of little kids, too. It's a bunch of kids that are homeschooled. There was a guy down there that's, mid-30s. He's just down, he has time, he brings his stick and skates back and forth in one corner. The others all stay at the other end. And if there get to be too many people, they tell him no, and he puts his stick away. But there's a lot of people that use it. Because of that hoopla, more days were opened up on the schedule, and they've been having more than they're required to have at this point. I mean, look at another DCR rink, and again, they're not going to start until the Friday after Thanksgiving.
So now that we're early November, what's the current status of the rink right now? Is the public skating just on Wednesdays, or is it
No.
other times?
I don't have their public skating schedule. They actually brought it, we had a meeting with a couple of the friends last week.
Yes.
And Curry actually brought in their entire schedule of everybody's use, and in it was the, when they were open. Their public skating is on their website. It's the same stuff that has a link back to DCR's website. So there's a lot more.
But in general, public skating, they try and have public skating when school is not in session, during holidays, during
If they know that the
Friday
kids are
days
out,
off.
they make those days available. They had public skating yesterday being the holiday.
As opposed to the schedule that was in the original DCR contract called for a lot of morning public skates, which
Right.
didn't make any sense at all. I mean, there was the same thing, there were just no kids around skating in
Right.
the morning. The other problem we had is, at some point in time, we're constrained with the rates we could charge for ice time by the permit. It's all regulated by Code of Mass Regulations, and those rates haven't changed in years.
2006.
So consequently, inflation has taken place and the rates haven't changed. Public skate is free. To try and put public skate in prime time, that's all anybody wants is prime time. We can't sell or have a difficult time selling non-prime time. So to take paying customers and put in non-paying public skate, as noble as it might be, is an economic hardship to the operator of the rink. And, given the fact that, the rink is yet to turn a profit, the rink, compared to what we understand that DCR was operating it at, is considerably more, or I shouldn't say more profitable, but loses considerably less money than it was under DCR.
We have asked every year since we bought the rink for the ability to have a rate increase. Before we signed the original contract with DCR, we had a letter from then Commissioner Sullivan saying that they would review the rates at the end of the first year. And we have sent a letter to them at every single year. We've sent the same letter to each one of the users stating that we were going to go in and ask for an increase every single year. We have not been given the increase, and therefore the rates have not gone up in the entire time that we've run the rink. I know that the user groups' fees have all gone up, but what we're charging them has not gone up. We've done comparison studies and sent those same comparative studies to DCR. We've had discussions with 3 different commissioners now over increasing those rates. We have been told by the latest one that, yes, it's coming. It would be here for the opening of the season. Well, it didn't. It's in administration and finance. We've asked again because they said it would be November 1st. It's still not November 1st. And it's not just us. This is all of the other rinks that are being controlled, that are owned by DCR. So, I mean, we're running on 2006 rates that...
So, Bill, 2 questions. The schedule going forward, because there's certain times in that RFP that have to be made available for public skating. When will that become effective? After Thanksgiving?
They have already have their schedule up for public skating. When they get more hours, they put more hours in, but their basic schedule is up and going.
But does the basic schedule comply with what the RFP
Yep. What the original RFP said is Monday through Friday mornings, Saturday and Sunday afternoons. What we have is Monday through Friday. We have longer, not just in the morning. We've stretched it into the afternoon. The Saturdays and Sundays fluctuate depending on, it usually depends on what the tournaments are that are within the rink itself.
So, all right, so I guess the bottom line is, are we in compliance with what DCR is requiring for public skating?
We've sent DCR our schedule every year. We attend where DCR said that they were going to have a meeting either in April or May. They've never had one in April or May. It's always in August. Their ice user, their rink user meetings are always in August, at which point everybody goes in, and it's not just the 5, it's other rinks too. They go in, they listen to DCR, they tell DCR what their issues are. It's just give back, DCR's opportunity to look and see that everybody has all of the appropriate forms. If somebody has done something that they're not supposed to, they're correcting them at that time. And it's before the rink gets open.
We have our user meeting in July, is that what?
We have ours usually in July. This year it was July 7th.
And does DCR attend that?
No. They're notified, but
they're notified
they
that
don't
the
attend.
meeting is...
No, they've
okay.
been notified every time. They just don't attend.
Okay.
That was going to be going where my second question was, but I don't know if you were here for Citizen Speak earlier when some of the members of the Friends of the Yulin Rink were in, and they specifically had a question about that July meeting, which is referenced on page 6 of the letter. Could you talk a little bit about what the practice has been over the last few years, when it's happened roughly? It says July of this year. Who's been represented? Who's there? What are those meetings like? What are they about? And are notes or minutes of them available?
I printed out our agenda, I didn't print out theirs. Yes, I did. the one. At that particular meeting, Milton Youth Hockey, Milton Public Schools, Braintree Youth Hockey, Westwood Youth Hockey, Norwood Youth Hockey, there's a couple of parent groups, whether they're Milton Over 30, Stinky Socks, and Commonwealth Figure Skating. They're all represented. They have all already seen they have a very large spreadsheet that they put out. Everybody picks their hours. They're basically, the last 2 years, they've been basically moving on what everybody's had before. And South Shore Conference, they're the other big user. South Shore Conference has, it's kind of a balance between Milton Youth Hockey and South Shore Conference as to who has more, depending on tournaments and stuff. Together, they are the greatest user of ice time. They're all there. They all get to, discuss what their issues are with the rink, their issues with the scheduling. They're all asked if they wanted more hours, if they wanted to take and fill in on, there's holes within the spreadsheet of times. This rink, unlike a for-profit rink, does not require you to come in on September 2nd, if you want to take Tuesday, and stay every Tuesday through April 30th. This one is if you don't start your skating until the end of October, that's fine. That Tuesday from the 3rd to the end of October is empty. If somebody else wants to rent that ice, they can move into that slot. Milton Youth Hockey's schedule is kind of, they start at different times so that when it ramps up, they fill out the whole schedule. And when they ramp down, it's not every group is still playing. So there are times that were available in July that they could have signed up for. They didn't at that time choose to take more. I know there were a couple of groups that did take more.
So, Bill, where are the meetings held?
At Curry.
At Curry. And everyone who's, that group of user clubs or user groups, they all get noticed before the meeting to come?
They were all there.
Are you the only representative from the town who's there, or is there anyone else?
Yes. Nope. I represented the town. Actually, July 7th at 7 o'clock was when that meeting started. On July 7th of this year, you had a meeting, and I had to go to that meeting and get back here by 8. So,
are those meetings publicized, or?
They're public. Anybody.
Is there a notice that goes out in someplace?
I know it went out by email. I don't know. I heard Claire's comment about a newspaper ad. I know that the first ones were. I don't know that this one was. I do know that each one of the users is asked to come to it. I know that each one of those user groups had representation at that meeting.
Including Milton Youth Hockey?
They get to pick first.
But they were at the meeting?
They were there. Mark was there. He right there, and they asked him.
And is there anyone who keeps notes of these meetings or minutes?
Rich Sullivan from Curry does.
I guess the other thing that's been out there too is the Milton Youth Hockey and the use of, is it South Boston or?
They're currently using Murphy Rink because they couldn't get certain hours.
Again, because they didn't select them in July?
Right.
They were available in July or not?
They could not promise them a year's worth of those hours in July. They could promise them a certain point, but the way the schedule ramps up, that those hours would have been gone by November. They may have been able to give them to them in September, October, but they couldn't promise them November, December, January, February.
Because
They're already
other
gone.
groups already had those hours?
Right.
Okay, okay. And that's just based upon everybody kind of got their previous schedule, that was kind of a starting
That's
point?
going on the schedule that, the initial schedule that Curry was following back in 2009-10 season.
Any other comments, questions? Mr.
I'll
Flynn?
make a few more points. Another point which I meant to make earlier is that regardless of who runs this rink, any construction work has to pay prevailing wage rates, and the reason is that it's a public building. I've noticed in some of the correspondence that point doesn't seem to be understood. And by the way, I know from experience in other communities, that's true even if you have volunteer labor do it or whatever. Well, if you're paying for the service, you have to pay a prevailing wage because it's a public building, regardless of who we contract with on that. I think that this situation highlights two rather serious issues, and it was an issue at the time that Milton was contemplating whether to seek the permit. You know, in the past, efforts have been made to have the legislature authorize longer-term leases. That authorization presently exists, as I understand it, but the state has not followed through on that. With a 5-year permit, there are some obvious limitations there. If you combine that with the limitations on the fees that can be charged, this is an ongoing problem in the future, regardless of who is going to run it. You're either going to have no capital improvements made and the structure deteriorate, or you're going to have dissatisfied user groups, or an attempt to recapture some of the expenditures. I mean, it just stands to reason that as long as you have a 5-year permit, this situation is not going to go away. And the 25-year term, which has been aggressively sought, would alleviate some of that situation.
I think
in my
related to
opinion.
that, John, is something in your letter.
Yes.
I don't recall offhand where it is, but that there's a very short period of time in which they can just cancel it with
Yes.
30 days' notice to the town.
On the permit, yes.
Yeah, the permit, yes. That was part of the risk that the town took in entering into this relationship. That on one hand, and the limitations on the facility, the structural condition of it, the limitation on fees that can be charged for hourly rates, and the length of the short term of the permit.
It's because of that 30-day out window that piece even got put into the contract originally. If you're going to take and put in, $200,000 to $300,000 worth of capital improvements, and you can be out in 30 days with no recourse, that's not a way to run a business. And that's what we were up against. I mean, the contract we have with the state says if they want it back, they can give us 30 days notice. We can give them 30 days notice. Because of that, we built that into the contract with Curry, that if we don't want them, it's 30 days, or they can give the same to us.
Right. Then the only stipulation with respect to the 520,000 is if we decide to put it out to another management company or sub-permittee, then they would
give us back what we've spent.
Right. If the town decides to manage it themselves, my reading of that contract is we don't owe them anything. If it goes back to the state, we don't owe them anything. The town has no financial risk.
That's correct.
Whatsoever in that contract.
Yes.
We have not been spending money up there yet, except for grass cutting and snow plowing.
Yep. Which we're using consolidated facilities to do at this point, or?
DPW.
DPW, yeah. Now, under the, and the rink still does need some capital improvements, considerable capital improvements.
Right now, the corners.
Plus the Zamboni.
Well, the Zamboni, we had the oldest and the worst Zamboni when we started. And DCR told the first 5 rinks when we started that they were going to send out an RFP to buy 5 new Zambonis, but that would be in a year or two. That never came, and that is since been wiped off the list, and it's not going to happen.
Right.
We've taken our Zamboni and we've rebuilt the motors, we've replaced the batteries, we bought a machine that was falling apart due to salt, and we cannibalized the front and rebuilt the entire front end of our machine with it. Now we have the strongest Zamboni in the fleet of 5. When we first started, we were calling about once a month, we were calling for the loaner that DCR has. We haven't been doing that lately because we have one of the best. The prevailing wage, that prevailing wage is one that everything that gets done there, whether it's the cleaners, the painters, the refrigeration people, everything is at prevailing wage. That's something that, you know, that is a huge expense that people just don't understand.
Right. And clearly, the town trying to operate it without a sub-permittee would be putting the town at risk in budget years when we just don't have any extra money. I mean, it would be, if we attempted to operate a losing skating rink, it would be at the behest of some other department. I mean, we'd have to take the money from someplace. It's not like there's extra money to run it.
Even the communities that have rinks, that have the long-term contract with DCR, they're contracts that the majority of communities really don't like. If you look at the long-term contract that the town of Arlington has, the town of Arlington had to bond and rebuild every single thing in that rink. At the end of their 20-year lease, they turn around with this brand-new building that they just rebuilt and give it back. And oh yeah, by the way, everything has to be in pristine condition when they turn it back. So they may be rebuilding things twice by the time they give it back. There are other long-term leases out there that once you get the long-term lease, all the capital items are yours. With our permit, if the slab were to crack today, they would fix the slab. If the roof gets a hole in it, they will fix the roof today.
They being Curry or DCR?
DCR. But the issue with that is our roof has a leak in it. We've been chasing DCR to fix the leak since we got the rink, and it just doesn't get done. We had snow come off the roof last year, hit one of the air vents into the locker rooms. It's still not replaced, but at least the leak has been stopped because Curry went and fixed what they could of it. It's a case that DCR is a little slack on getting up and getting, doing the capital items that need to be done to the rink. The boards there are, they're soft in the corners because the radius in the corners isn't what it should be. The radius should be bigger, and you could then get the Zamboni to go into the corner and fix the ice. As it is, our corner is too tight, the Zamboni can't make it in there, and we have to go in and shave down on those corners. And they have an edging machine that goes in and does that, but they have to do that a couple of times a week. So there's a lot of hand stuff that gets done on that ice that if the state had come in and put in new boards, put in new glass, put in new rubber on the floor like they've done in other rinks, it would be better. But instead, we rely on Curry to, fix the boards, fix the glass, replace the glass, put down new rubber, and just, upkeep everything in the rink. And at the same time, don't charge the town of Milton. So we don't have a line item in any of the budgets that you're going to see for Yulin Rink. And I think that's the premise that we've been running on, is keep it as low as possible.
Right. And that being said, we are still quite interested in trying to get that long-term lease.
You can get a long-term lease.
If we can negotiate
right.
a lease that makes sense to the town.
Then we can go and address the issues, correctly on replacing the boards, fixing the radius in the ice. Instead of value engineering like was originally done on the rink, you put in the right size chiller that instead of having to have the chiller run all the time, you get the appropriate sized one, not get a small one and just run it 24/7. Instead of having to get, motors that, well, they'll work, and we'll put in 2 of them. I mean, that's not how you do it. You put in one that can run everything, and you've got a backup. And you can then switch them back and forth. But we get them that they're 3/4 the size they should be. We have to run both of them.
Yes, Mr. Quinn.
Just wanted to reiterate, this isn't a limitation, but it's a condition under which we, Milton, operate under that permit. The permittee hereby agrees to operate in accordance with the DCR mission and agrees to operate and manage the facility as a statewide ice skating rink made available to members of the general public and shall not provide preference to any one municipality, organization, or group. The permittee, that's us, agrees not to provide preference or preferential treatment to residents of the town of Milton or to Milton Youth Hockey except as provided by law. In the records I reviewed, there are at least 15 user groups that are using Hewlin Rink. And the records I reviewed indicate that the top 3 users, the most ice time has been assigned in order to Milton Youth Hockey, to public skating, and to the South Shore Conference. The South Shore Conference is, as it implies, several South Shore teams, but Milton Youth play in that too. So those are the rules, if you will, under which the rink is being operated, and within that, those are the 3 top users. But that's a mandate from DCR, and it's a lot of user groups to juggle, 15, if my count is accurate.
And has that historically been the case, that
Yeah.
where it's a DCR rink or an MDC before it?
Before it had operated.
It was open to skating groups, youth hockey groups from other towns?
Yeah, just
It's
by
a
way of-
state rink.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, the user groups haven't changed in quite a while, have they?
No.
For exa-
We've moved some of the hours. There was a hole in Norwood's hours, and we asked them to, I think it was come later 1 hour, and it's either come later or leave early. There was a hole in the middle that we asked them to move their 2 groups together, and it's fine. But we had to get permission from DCR to do that, because the way their schedule was, there was no rhyme or reason.
So doesn't it seem that going forward, we're in the last year of this contract with the DCR, that we need to make sure that going forward for this 2014-15 season, the public skating times are what they are required to be under the RFP? And Bill, are you comfortable, as the person who's interfacing with Curry, that we're going to satisfy those requirements for public skating?
We always have more than 12 hours. We always have more than 16 hours in a week. And we're required to have, I believe it's 16 hours in a week.
But on certain days and certain times,
If
right?
you read it literally, you'll be doing a disservice to the youth of Milton.
Because some of it is daytime hours during the
I
week?
can take
Yeah,
and do
we'll
Monday through
gladly
Friday.
do that, and
I can do Monday through Friday mornings and
Right, and
make
nobody will be
up all
there.
those times.
So is
if
that,
you read the contract literally, that's what it says.
Right.
so it sounds a bit like you're saying that the current situation is more or better than what's required
More
in the
hours,
RFP?
more hours.
It's more hours at more times,
For the public skating?
yes. I mean, school vacations, they're there. Teacher days, they're there. Holidays, they're there. They have these public skating times.
That's happening now, it's not
It's
not until after Thanksgiving, it's happening now.
Now, they started September 3rd. Labor Day was September 1st?
Early.
Yes, Labor Day was September 1st. They opened September 2nd. The first public skating day was September 3rd on a Wednesday. And they had 11 to 2:30. And
Was that the only public skating time during the month of September, was just Wednesdays during those 3 hours?
That's when they first put up the board that in September, this is what they would have. And they put up all the Wednesdays and said from 11 to 2:30 they would have public skating. That was their first foray into public skating this year. Knowing that they would have done more later, they just figured, all right, we're open early. Other places aren't open yet. There's no requirement that we get this place open until October. We're open in September. Let's put the hours out there.
Okay. So now that we're into November, we're doing this 16 hours or
Full-time.
more?
Yep.
Okay. Any other comments or questions from anyone?
We actually put those hours out on the board, on the table last week, and the people who were here didn't seem to have issues with it.
No, I mean, I guess the only thing I would ask of the Friends of the Year rink, as opposed to trying to beat up the contractor, they have constructive criticism of how the rink is being managed, and I have not heard any yet. We've sat down with two people who really have not had any true problem with the way the rink is being managed. If anybody has questions, you know, I mean...
They want more hours for Milton Youth Hockey, but there's only so many hours in the schedule.
You know, we're here to answer questions. We're not here to get in battles with people. You know, we're not... And let's be constructive, and I'll be happy to listen.
And the meeting you've had is with members of the Friends of the Yulin Rink?
Yes. And then it was a constructive meeting.
Okay, anything else, John or Bill, from anyone?
Thank you very much.
I have nothing else, then. Thank you both very much for coming in and going through all of this with us, and for writing the letter, John. And Bill, again, this is not really a normal function of a town planning director, so we appreciate you taking this on. And
I got lots of these projects.
I know you do. We're hoping we can get you some help soon. Okay, thank you all.
Thank you.
That's what we hear.
All right, we are on to budgets is the next item on our agenda. And the first budget is the Council on Aging budget. We have Mary Ann Sullivan, our COA director, here tonight. Good evening, Mary Ann.
Good evening.
Hi, Mary Ann.
Hi, Maria.
Okay, so we have the Council on Aging's budget, and we have level service, level dollar, and then a third column that the Warrant Committee requested, which was a 2% decrease.
Right. I'd like to first give you a little update of what happened since the last time I was in asking for your approval for the full-time van driver position. I appeared before the Personnel Board. We had a lengthy discussion. I had informational packets for them, and they unanimously supported the position.
Good.
So I was very happy with that. In the meantime, I also have 2,022 signatures from residents of the town of Milton supporting a full-time van driver position. These were obtained at flu clinics, Election Day, Veterans Event, and our Shred Day on Saturday. We also have them in senior housing. I haven't even picked those up yet, so a lot of support for it. I think what you're going to have to do is tell me how you'd like me to proceed with this, because in talking with Anne Marie this morning, I guess the Board of Selectmen felt there wasn't enough substance in the narrative. So what I did is I went back.
Yes, I did, and that was coming from me.
I think it was a selectman.
Okay, I wasn't privy to that, but...
And let me preface that with it's not the Council on Aging's budget, it's all the budgets that I'm concerned about, that we tend to go in with budgets, and if you put yourself in the shoes of the Warrant Committee, you know, they don't know what's behind the numbers. They're trying to understand them. We have these little cryptic, and again, it's not just, it's all the town department budgets are the same way. These cryptic little narratives that really don't tell you much, trying to understand what service do we provide, how do we provide that service, what is level service, how do we measure level service. Those are things that, well, the schools do very well. You know, they come through, and granted, you know, they have a lot more time I understand all of that.
Time, staff, and expertise.
I understand that. But they come through, and by the time you finish going through their budget, even though it's very complex and maybe you don't understand all of it, at least you have a good understanding of what they do, why they do it, what they looked at in terms of if they had to make cuts, where they looked, why they couldn't make a cut here, how they could make it there, how they analyzed it, and exactly what everything means. And you come out of that saying, okay, they have their act together, I understand it. I don't understand everything you do, I don't understand all the programs, but I understand basically. And that's what our budgets don't do. Our budgets, you just really have a hard time. Again, my idea and what I told Anne Marie I wanted to see was, let's start off with level service, let's justify level service. Here's what we do, here's why we need this, and then let's drill down from level service to level dollar, and drill down from level dollar to the 2% below. That would be the goal, to see exactly what the difference is. If I have to go from level service to level dollar, well, what effect is that on service? Service is the key. And nobody seems to be able to articulate that very well amongst any of the departments. And that's my frustration.
Right. And it's my frustration as well, Tom, because this is the first year in 21 years, 22 actually, that I've been presenting the budget that we're asking for something like a full-time position. Yep. I have Michael Belf, who did the presentation here, who's a former selectman. He's incredible. He's coming with me. I feel confident that when we go before the warrant committee, we're not going to be the school, we don't have that, but we are going to do a presentation that's going to present all the points that you just articulated.
Okay. And again, we're also charged with taking a look at these budgets, and we'd like to make sure that there's that whole vetting out process. And it's not that we don't agree that you need the van drive. I mean, I think the argument was compelling, and I certainly agree with that. Clearly we have an aging population, and there's more and more service that has to be provided because there's just more people that need the service.
Right.
And that is what the service is about. So I just wanted to make sure that came through on the budget document that we're submitting. There's other things that I know, you look at some budgets and the salaries go up by 2%. You look at this budget and the salary from, and I'm talking level dollar, not level service, goes up 5%. Well, why? I mean, there's nothing in here to tell me, what has caused the 5% increase in, and you really can't tell looking at the salary schedule. It's impossible.
It was 2 steps.
Right, but you can't tell that. You really can't. For the person trying to look at this thing and understand it, it's very difficult to tell that. I figured that it probably was steps.
Well, Mary Ann sent over this afternoon, and I didn't get a chance to really look at it in a lot of detail, but it's a revised summary.
Yes, it was much better.
So it's a 3-page summary rather than a 1-page. It has a lot more detail in it. So, so Mary Ann, thanks. You turned that around pretty quickly. So thanks for getting that over to us.
When you've worked on it as long as I have, Katie, it's easy to turn it around. So again, that increase, Tom, is 2 steps, and the increase in longevity because, and I dare say that's how it's going to be with most department budgets. So again, the big increase in ours was the full-time van driver position. Again, less than $40,000 a year for a position that is so long overdue.
And we have already voted to support that.
Right, as did the Personnel Board, right. So the, level service, the 2% cut, in a budget like the Council on Aging that is so bare bone, I mean, where do you take a 2% cut? I take this very seriously because we see the need. We see the need for what the seniors need for transportation. We have the Friends of the Council on Aging, who are our fundraising arm. As you'll see in one of the sheets I gave you, we fundraise 60% of our budget for transportation. So I went to the Friends of the Council on Aging. First, our board looked at it, and then I went to the Friends, because the Friends will not fund utilities, they will not fund paper towels, they will not fund things like that. What they will fund, again, through fundraising and some dedicated volunteers, is part-time van drivers' salaries, the ones that aren't funded by the town, gas for the vans, purchase vans, things like that. So our 2% cut was $4,139. I went before the Friends and I said, if this comes to fruition, would this be something you would fund? They assured me that would be something they would fund. I don't take it lightly. I don't want to scare seniors. I don't want to say, we're not going to put a van on the road one day because of, a cut. That's not the way to operate. Again, it's working together, trying to get the services we needed. So I have their full support that they would fund an article like that. I mean, a cost like that. So there was no other place in that budget I could take it out. Truthfully, if I went to the Friends and they said they wouldn't fund it, you could have taken it out of my salary line. That's how much it's needed. I mean, there's no more we can do. There's no more fundraising we can do. 60%, I dare say there's not another department in town that fundraises that much. When you've got over 2,000 residents who pay the taxes, we need this. It was very interesting at voting, and I know this is a long meeting, but a younger man came in and he looked at the thing and he said, I will sign that. He said, because you know what? I want to grow old in this town and I want to have the services in place. So we've kind of like done a little bit of a turnaround. It's not just the seniors who are supporting it. Another young person asked me if she could take it to her block party, and she came back with 104 signatures. So it's out there. It's an issue that the voters support, the residents who pay the taxes support, and I don't know what else I can do. I'm at a loss.
Question, and again, just more plain devil's advocate than anything else, but the question could be asked, well, if the Friends will cover the fuel in the 2% budget, why won't they cover it on the level service budget?
You mean cover the van driver?
Not the van driver, the fuel. I mean, you said if I have to cut fuel, the Friend, will pick it up. So the question could be asked, well, why isn't that money available under all the scenarios in the budget?
Because that was the only place we were taking the cut from. The rest is...
But what I'm saying is, there's got to be a choice there then. That's got to be money that isn't being used someplace else.
It's the Friends' money. It's not...
But the Friends, I mean, they're there to support the Council on Aging.
Right.
So that money must get used someplace.
It pays the van driver's salaries. That's 60% of fundraising. That's where that money comes from, and the Copeland Family Foundation.
So are you saying...
So I'm saying that there's got to be a choice there. I mean, if in the 2% we're saying we're going to use that to cover the shortfall that we cut out of the budget for fuel, for gas for the vans, then what's the impact? That's got to bump out some other place. Otherwise...
Or is it additional fundraising? I guess that's
it's additional fundraising.
Would be the Friends going out looking to raise more money than
right.
they normally would? That's a question.
It would be additional fundraising, and we are looking at that. We are doing additional fundraising for this fiscal year to get us through.
Okay.
I mean, truthfully, it's $4,139. That's what a cut is of 2% of the Council on Aging budget. It's small.
It's a small budget.
Small.
Yeah, it's a small budget, and it's a bare bones
and
budget.
I truly, give these people who are doing the fundraising so much credit, and they've been doing it for so long.
It's hard work.
It's hard work. It's hard work. But I think it's time for, a full-time van driver position to be, you supported it, the Personnel Board supports it. I am confident that with the presentation we're going to do at the Warrant Committee, hopefully they'll support it. Bottom line is town meeting. We have no problem doing a presentation at town meeting and just really, getting this position on the books once and for all so that, the residents who are paying exorbitant taxes are going to get the help they need.
The one request that I would make, Marianne, is, and I've asked Anne Marie to do this for all the departments, for all the town departments, is that, that we speak as one collective general government town budget. We're individual budgets, but speak collectively, so that I would like Anne Marie to be there as well to support the Council on Aging.
Right.
And I'm going to ask her to do that for all the town side budgets.
And I know the Council on Aging Board, when we go before the Warrant Committee, will be there in full force. So.
Okay, good.
We'll try to get there if we can make it, depending on the schedule. I'm sure some of us will try to get to some of the Warrant Committee meetings especially when our department budgets are being presented. We should probably explain for anyone who's watching who might not understand this. minus 2%, this is a request from the warrant committee itself, is that correct?
That's
Yes.
correct.
So,
At this point, it's just an arbitrary
It's just
number.
and I think it was a different number a month or so ago
Right,
when we
it
talked
started
about
out-
this.
Something.
Yeah, it was
Over
3
3%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is something that they've settled on, and they've asked every department, I'm guessing they've asked the schools as well to consider it.
Yeah, I assume they have, yes.
Okay, so this is something that every department is submitting, but it is an arbitrary number, and the reason we're submitting a third column on these budgets, I'm only bringing it up now because this is the first one we're really dealing with, is because it's a request from the warrant committee. It's not something that this board has asked for, the department heads are voluntarily offering up. It's something that came from a different committee.
Right.
So, any other questions on Mary Ann's budget, or?
I get them all
Want
at
to add,
town
Mary
meeting,
Ann?
Katie.
Anything you'd like to tell us about this that we
No,
haven't
I think
covered yet?
I think it's a budget you can look at. You can see how many rolls of paper towels, how many coffee cups. It's very, very transparent. It always has been. And
Now, under this budget, we'd add the full-time, under the level service budget, we'd add the full-time van driver and still have the part-time van drivers as
Absolutely.
well, which would be paid by the fundraising activity.
well, the town right now funds 17 hours, so
Hours.
that would be still there. And
Yeah.
this is a new position,
With the full-time.
right, full-time with benefits.
Okay.
Anything else on this budget? And if not, do we have a motion?
Motion to approve the Council on Aging budget and forward to the warrant committee?
Second.
The draft motion, I'll just offer a friendly amendment to add on what Mrs. Rizzi put in the motion, it's just because there's two numbers here, unlike some of the others, in the amount of $256,300 for level service and $219,557 for the level dollar budget.
I'll accept that.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mary Ann.
Mary Ann.
All right, next is our town accountant, Amy Dexter, here for two budgets, unemployment and the audit budget.
Hey, Amy.
These ones are a little more straightforward.
Yes.
They are.
Good evening, Amy.
Hi.
My only concern on both of these is that these are, in essence, bills. I mean, they're pretty much non-controllable expenses.
Correct.
Unemployment is going to be what it's going to be. We're showing the 2%, for example, on unemployment, we're showing the 2% below level at a reduced unemployment when that's probably unrealistic.
Yeah.
If we go 2% across the board, then that number's probably going to be up, not down. So to put it through that way seems...
True.
I would say don't. I would say under a 2%, I would maybe make it higher. I don't know by what number, but you know that if you cut 2% across the board and it hits into the schools as well, then unemployment's going to shoot up.
Right, I think that the warrant committee and in the past, they've chosen to keep it level at 100,000, and in the event it goes more than that, they've asked me to seek an RFT.
Right, but it seems
Historically.
pointless. It seems stupid to say, okay, well, I'll make it lower so I can take more out of the reserve fund. I mean, it's just stupid.
Well,
I mean,
it's counterintuitive, you're right, but it is a request from the warrant committee to just put in the number that's minus 2%, so.
Right, and they
You
did it
didn't see
as
the
a
retirement
formula.
budget doing that.
Well, we don't have that
there's
one,
no
it came
control
out this
over that.
afternoon and I didn't get a chance to look at it tonight.
They're all three of them the same. There is no
All
difference.
right, well, then maybe we should be uniform across the
I think you
board
should
if we're
be.
going to do that.
I would not reduce it.
Well, I did it, the warrant committee's request was formula-based, that's why I put the 98,000. The last 3 years' average is,
Same thing with audit.
Yeah, I mean, unemployment
Last 3 years'
fluctuates probably more so than the
average is
audit and the
97,000.
retirement.
Audit's a
Maybe
bill.
that's-
I mean, we
Right,
you know,
right.
where
But
are you going to get it
unemployment,
from?
but at least we know what it is, because we know what the contract's in place already. And I want to ask you, when we get to that, what year we're in that contract, but at
Right.
least the audit, we have a contract, we know what the amount will be. Unemployment depends
But that one on
on
the
what
2%
happens during the course of
has
the
been
year.
cut too. Doesn't make any
No,
sense.
yeah. But, the warrant committee understands that. And
It's just an exercise that they've asked us to do. We're just trying to comply with their request.
right.
I can
It is-
understand it on the regular budgets, and warrant committee never did that on budgets that were bills.
And I submitted
Yeah,
it that way, and in my narrative, I said that the impact of that would be non-compliance. We have to pay the bills. We have to have an audit, or else the town's not in compliance.
Well, so I guess the question is, do we want to submit the budgets as they've been prepared using the warrant committee's direction? Or
I would say no, personally.
For the budgets that are bills?
That are bills. It doesn't make any sense.
No, but it's something that they can, we're still giving them the level service and the level dollar on these, and
It's really
they'll
just an
understand.
exercise.
They'll understand. I'm sorry, Dan.
It's just an exercise, right? Minus 2%, that's it. That's all.
Yeah. Amy, on the, well, I guess we're on unemployment. Why don't we stay on that one for right now?
I mean, every year I've put, last year I tried to put in more, and they shot me down because they don't want it to change from the 100,000 on the unemployment.
It has fluctuated over the years, but probably in recent years it's been
Again,
under.
keep in mind, too, Raymond, there are budgets. We put them what they want. We can let them do what they want. I mean, they're going to make their
Right, I was just
recommendations.
following the instructions that
Exactly, yeah.
I was given.
I mean, it's only a couple of $1,000s. I don't think we should worry too much about it, do you, Tom?
No,
You're
other
only-
than it's just...
You,
the point is
this
they're
board are
legal.
only approving the level service and level dollar budget. That 2% reduction is just an exercise that we've done, that we've been asked to do by the warrant committee. So your vote tonight is just to approve the level service and the level dollar budget. That's it.
Right.
That's a good point. So in that sense, and I think my inclination would be to leave them as they are and submit them to the warrant committee in the form they wanted. Hearing your merits of your viewpoint, Tom, I agree.
All right, so I'll make a motion to approve and forward to the warrant committee the FY16 unemployment budget in the amount of $100,000.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. Okay, for the audit, Amy, what year of this contract are we in?
I think fiscal year 16 will be the last year, so we are at the point where we'll need to go out to bid again or get a new contract.
How many years is it?
It's usually we sign for 3 years.
Oh, we have it through
We're in
16.
the last, yes.
Yes.
I know that the Town Government Study Committee, is looking again at that question about the audit committee, because we had tentatively submitted an article for a prior town meeting about a year ago, and then we pulled it because the Government Study Committee was still looking at that, and I think they're going to be making a recommendation possibly for the May town meeting on that one, so
Okay.
might be something for the audit committee, if it's, assuming there's a new bylaw enacted in May, maybe it's something to leave for that. But I know that at both at the warrant committee and another scenario, in other contexts, the issue of going out for an RFP rather than just entering into a new contract with the same auditors has been raised by the warrant committee and by others. But I guess if we do, depending on how quickly the audit committee bylaw moves, maybe that's something for another board to think about rather than this one.
I'll move to approve and forward to the warrant committee the FY municipal audit in the amount of $66,200.
Second, I do have, is this just the audit, or is the, what do you call it in here also, the GASB 45?
Yes, it is the GASB 45. That's why it jumped from 58.2 to 66.2.
Okay.
The fee the last time we had it done 2 years ago was $7,250. I have it in at $7,500. That's just based from initial informal quote from the firm that did it the last time. They said there'd be a slight increase in the fee, so I put it in at about 3% increase.
And I'm concerned, I still keep harping on this, I'm concerned about GASB 68, that you're going to incur some costs there, that you're going to need some professional services.
Which is GASB 68?
GASB 68 is even worse than GASB 45 in that it's going to require the entire unfunded pension liability to come onto the books as a liability, but not using the actuarial study necessarily that PERAC does. It would require a second actuarial study because the interest rates assumptions are different. Now, it may not be different, depends on how they fall, but and is that second actuarial assumption going to be free? And if not, who has to pay for it? And do we need any other further consulting? Because there are, how you record that gets a little bit tricky. You've got to record it as the, well, first of all, the year end on the, for the pension plan is December. Our fiscal year end is June. So you're recording that liability probably as of December, and then any payments you make to pension after the date of recording that liability don't become expenses on your books. They become deferred inflows and deferred outflows. The whole accounting for this thing is very bizarre and unique. And I'm just concerned that there may be costs there that we haven't factored yet.
There may be. I have had a couple of discussions with the audit partner. He didn't seem to have that level of concern, and I don't know enough about it to answer the question, honestly.
Okay, is there anything else on the budget in particular, then? Because
Other
that sounds
than
like that
no.
might be a discussion for a later date.
Other than that, no.
Okay, then, motion was made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous. Amy, you want to defer the central business office budget until?
Yeah, in light of comments from earlier today, I'll have to revisit it.
Okay, so we'll put that on maybe for the 19th?
Um,
Or whenever
not sure
we're
we'll have
available?
enough information by then.
Okay, then I think we're finished.
Okay, thank you.
I'll let you go home. Thank you.
Thanks, Amy.
All right, Joe Prondak is here. We're going to cover the inspectional services budget as well.
Good evening.
Good evening, Joe. So Joe's request is for $426,273 for level service and $414,206 for level dollar. Joe, do you want to just introduce your budget or speak a little bit to what the difference between the level service and the level dollar is?
I do. The level service, as I understand it and was instructed, would be to continue to provide the same service that we have been providing all along. As I noted in my letter to the warrant committee, our numbers are up substantially, our receipts are up substantially over the past 2 years. And that's just a clear indicator of the workload. As the number of permits goes up, the fees increase, the fees we take in increase, but so does the workload. So I have requested, right now I have our part-time local inspector, Walter White, working at 16 hours. I'd like to bring him up to 20.
Was he 20 previously?
The position was approved for 20 initially by the Personnel Board. The warrant committee actually wanted to cut it down to 10, and for a point in time during this year, I thought it was, but I was mistaken. He is approved and working 16 hours a week, but I would like to bring that up to 20. The other thing I've requested from the Personnel Board would be to increase the plumbing inspector's hours to 25 hours. The increase there is, I think, largely due to the Mass Save programs in the boiler replacements. A lot of people are replacing old inefficient gas boilers, and they're getting incentives from the utilities to replace those, substantial discounts on the cost of those. So that again has increased the workload for the
Does he work every day?
No, he's part-time.
Like a couple of hours every day?
Well, it's 22 hours a week. So that's...
You bring that up to 25.
Bring it up to 25. So that is essentially what I feel we need for level service, and the level dollar would not increase those hours. It's my understanding that this year the contracted raises are built into both the level service and the level dollar budget. So it's a little different than we've done it in the past. And then the 2% reduction, because my thought process there is that because the because my department operates based on construction and what's going to happen, it's very hard to forecast what's going to happen and, how many permits are we going to see, what kind of money are we going to bring in, and not only that, but, how many zoning complaints are we going to get, and it's very hard to project, so I'm trying to stay away from personnel cuts and only do that as a last resort, so I try to, with a little trepidation, I try to incorporate that into expenses over time, and our replacement plumbing inspector, who is, who's there to cover for Mr. Kelly when he's on vacation or out sick. So that's always a very, that's always much of a moving target. And then if things got drastically worse into the year, then we could look at personnel cuts if need be.
But you could cut hours as well, yeah?
We could, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, we
It'd
would
be
want
impact on service.
Yes.
And possibly on revenue, because
Well,
the number of...
services are revenue, yeah.
Exactly,
yeah.
so the number of people you have available to go out and do these inspections, you could either create a backlog.
Right.
And then you're
I guess the
pushing revenue
revenue,
to the next
it
year.
certainly slows down the
Coming in
stream of
slower.
revenue, yeah. And, a lot of Joe's time is spent with zoning violations too, which would probably...
Yes, and my additional hope is that this will be the final year we'll be able to resolve the 131 Elliott Street demolition process, which literally will free up a lot of my time, and my focus will get back onto the day-to-day operations of the office.
Joe, just a couple of questions.
You have to lay people off.
On your general expenses, even though they're small numbers, I noticed that your meeting expenses, your actual FY14 was only $1,500. Your budget was $3,000, and you continue to budget $3,000 for 16. Was the actual $1,600 for meetings just an anomaly in 14, or is?
Schedule lead time, right?
Yeah. I guess the question is, is meeting expense normally around 3,000?
It is normally around 3,000.
It's just
My guess is that a part of that is because we weren't able to make as many as we normally do. We normally all schedule either one or two a month, and they're held by various agencies that keep us up to date on the various codes and code changes, because the changes, the codes are forever changing.
And then, just again,
Sure.
Putting the warrant committee hat on and looking at these things, you spent three grand in postage in FY14. I mean, that's, sort of a fixed cost. I mean, it probably varies with, the number of permits and things like, but have there been any changes to reduce postage? Because now we're only budgeting $1,500 again. And how are you going to meet the $1,500 budget? And again, the small numbers, I understand, but...
Yeah, I do apologize. I would have to look at that a little more closely. I think...
Tom, are you saying that if it costs $3,000, put in $3,000?
Well, if I'm using just good budgeting technique, if I'm going to reduce my budget for the next year below what I actually spent, I should have some justification for it. Either I have a plan to make it go down, or I know it's going to go down because there was something weird that happened in 14 that's not going to occur again. But
not just put it in lower and expect an RFT later on.
Exactly.
Okay.
Or just put it in just to make the budget down.
Would there have been something unusual, Joe, that would have bumped that number up in 14? Because it looks like you had
Yeah,
budgeted that.
I'm looking at the 1,551, which was an overage. We had budgeted 1,500 the year before.
Right.
I'm guessing that right at this time, I'm guessing that it might have had something to do with the zoning budget that we have under our umbrella now.
It is only that 1 year, though.
Well, that's the only actual year we have, the rest are budgets, so.
What's right?
So the zoning, I'm not familiar
The
with
Board
that.
of
We
Appeals.
we took over the Board of Appeals budget a couple of years.
Okay.
And so there may have been some cases where an unusual amount of mailings, and all the mailings for the Board of Appeals are certified, and a certified letter is now
Expensive.
Yeah.
$5 or $6.
Yeah.
That makes sense, doesn't it?
So
Yeah, so I
thinking
mean,
that's-
just as long as we feel comfortable that
Yeah.
$1,500 is reasonable.
Yeah, I
So
apologize, I
postage-
wasn't.
So Joe, postage that used to be in the Board of Appeals budget is now in your budget?
Yes, and the Board of Appeals budget for expenses is zero. Yeah, so everything spent for the Board of Appeals is through my office.
And then the only other thing, just refresh my mind, I assume that the $8,000 in FY14 was one-time money, but I just didn't remember what it was for.
The $8,000, that was a,
Schedule is that, Tom?
that was
Schedule E still.
I forget the name of it, the 3% transfer that we do
At the end of the year?
at the end of the year, and that was for duplication of electronic archives plans. We took some of our archives plans and permit applications and put them onto electronic formats. So that we
Okay,
would-
one-time expenditure?
Yeah.
Okay, so that explains why in 15 and 16, the budget's back down to 10,000.
Further questions or comments on this budget?
No, other than
Joe,
that,
anything else you want to add?
Well, I mean, ideally, you know, we would eventually like to have the part-time inspector up to a full-time inspector. You know, I think there's a lot, I have a lot of, I would say, plans. I'd like our department to be more proactive, and I'd like us to do, actually do trainings for homeowners and contractors, you know, to help them to familiarize homeowners with the process, both the building permit process and the zoning process. And I think that's something we should do on a regular basis. And I also think that we should help the contractors as well to keep up with changes in the code. Because in the end, that only helps us. That only helps to streamline our department. And right now, with the staff level that we have, all we can do is keep our head above water. But that's down the road. I mean, it was a struggle to get the part-time inspector and to keep it at 16 hours last year. So I'm only asking for the 4 hours, just trying to be realistic on that.
You said, again, it was approved for 20, but because of the amount of the budget, it became 16?
It's in the classification plan as a part-time position, 20 hours a week. However, it was only appropriated 16 hours.
I don't know, ready?
Okay.
Make a motion to approve and forward to the Warrant Committee the FY16 Inspection and Services budget. The amount of $426,273, which is level service, and $414,206, which is $11.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you very much.
Joe, if you can stay with us, the next item is a reserve fund transfer request. This is relating to the demolition for 0 Central Avenue. The situation currently is that last May, the Warrant Committee had recommended, and it was appropriated, but the funds of $250,000 were set aside in the reserve fund rather than being in a separate article. So there's money being held in the reserve fund. We have $250 really earmarked for the demolition costs for the Henry's building. The bid that we accepted was $317,225.
That's correct.
Mistaken. So we have notified the Warrant Committee Chair, Ted Hayes, that we did accept the bid and that this is a potential expense that we're going to be looking at. So the question is, we probably need to submit something informal in writing to the full committee to let them know that we may be coming to them for a reserve fund transfer request during the course of the year. And we have $250 set aside. The bid is $317,225, so it's really $67,000 and change difference. So the idea would be that we might want to request a set aside in the reserve fund at this time to let the Warrant Committee know. And sometimes what they'll do is just not transfer the money to a particular budget or line, but set it aside so the money stays in the reserve fund, but it's documented in the warrant committee's records that they know that 317,225 is going to be needed for this particular purpose. And that obviously decreases pretty substantially the amount that they'd have available for other purposes. I'd be surprised if they've had any requests this early in the fiscal year. And we'll need to talk with Ted Hayes and the warrant committee about, at some point, if necessary, replenishing the reserve fund from free cash through a May appropriation if it's needed.
Might have to.
Might have to. We'll see how the year plays out. It's possible, too, that there could be additional costs involved in demolition, that at some point we would need to go for additional reserve fund transfers. But right now, I think we'd be looking to them to set aside.
Make sure we have the money to cover the contract, yeah.
Yes.
Why are we leaving out some of the costs? You know,
We're not, the only thing that we know for sure is the amount that we bid at this time.
Yeah.
But
And depending on where it falls, if there are additional costs, you may be able to just do it at town meeting.
like for example, Joe cannot issue the building permit until the MBTA issues their license, right? Yet we don't have that in the budget.
We don't know what the
Can we
price.
approximate it?
Well, I did a breakdown of not understanding that we might only be going for the 67,000. I did a total estimate of what I think the overall cost will be, and so I allocated within that $40,000.
But that's
in
really an
total.
unknown at this time, isn't it, Joe?
It is an
It's
unknown.
not really determined yet, because we have to go through a few more
Yeah,
stages in order to know what a real number might be there. And then,
What the plan is at this point, and I've alerted the T and I've alerted the engineer that we've been using on this project, is that once a contract is signed, then we're going to set up a meeting with the town's engineer, RAS, the demo contractor, the T, and the Conleys. And then at that point, we'll develop a demolition plan. How do we tear this building down and minimize the downtime on the T and the effects on
so
the neighborhood?
there's more that needs to happen before we're going to have a number there.
Yeah.
So what we can do, Dennis, is tell the warrant committee we're expecting there will be additional costs, because obviously we've got transformers in the building, there's some other associated costs. But we at least need to, I think at this stage, where we voted this to accept the bid the night at one of our meetings prior to town meeting. So I did tell Ted that night as we were walking into the hall that we had, what our vote was, and have followed it up with an email to him. And he understands what the number is, but we should probably submit a written request to let them know, since the warrant committee controls the reserve fund, and a vote of the warrant committee is needed in order to transfer it. So we need to put them on record, really, and let them know at this stage that this is what we may be seeking. There could be more, but a lot of factors will determine what the...
Well, there will be more.
There will be more, but a lot of factors will determine what it will be.
Right.
Yeah, hopefully it's less than what I've estimated there,
But some of these are actuals that are like the independent engineering. Did you get a?
Well, that's based on an hourly basis. I estimated it at
That's an
250.
estimate.
Yeah, that's an estimate, 250.
Environmental, is that an
Environmental,
estimate?
that is absolutely an estimate.
The transformer removal is
Transformer is
actual.
a definite, that's an
Okay.
actual. And then the T is definitely an estimate.
But is Ted Hayes aware that it's going to be substantially more than the 67 that we're requesting?
He's aware that there will be more.
additional
I mean,
cost.
I think our RFT request is going to spell out, I assume the town administrator and Joe together will write up the RFT request based on our vote, but they'll indicate in the memo that there'll be other costs associated with demolition that we may be coming to the reserve fund for. And I'm sure we may even have to go in when they put it on even for a set-aside vote. They may want us to come in and talk with them about it, so we can certainly go in and talk to them. So do we have a motion to, the proposed motion, did you have a revised one?
It would be $67,225.
Right now, the proposed motion is for reserve fund transfer. I think we probably want a reserve fund set aside at this time, rather than seeking an actual transfer.
So I'll move to approve and forward to the warrant committee a request for reserve fund set aside in the amount of $67,000, how much?
$225.
Shouldn't it be,
220.
It'd be the 317, 225. I know
Well,
we've already
you've
got
got
250
set aside
That's
already.
already there, yeah, so it's just
there.
an additional.
Yeah, okay.
We can outline that in the
We'll
letter.
explain that in
yeah.
the letter.
The amount of $67,250 for the demolition of 0 Central Ave.
I'll second it for discussion. My question is, when we do, and we will have to come back for more money, do we have to vote that extra money then again?
To
Yes.
seek an RFT request, yes.
We will, okay.
The problem is if I don't know how to properly do it, because if they set it aside, and then that money is pulled out of their reserve fund, basically. It can't be used for anything else at that point.
Well, they can reverse
Well, they
the
can
set
reverse
aside.
They can reverse it, yes.
That's why we want the set aside rather than the transfer.
Right.
Because if it gets transferred into our budget or, whatever
then we
budget we
can't get it
designate, then we got to wait till the end of the year, I think, and do the 3% or, so.
3% or just adjust the budget again back, yeah.
So it's better to have it as a set aside so that then the warrant committee, it's just documented in their records and they can reverse it down the road if they need to. So we have a motion to request a reserve fund transfer in the amount of $67,250, I think you said, Tom?
Yes.
For the demolition, do we have any other discussion on the motion? Then if not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous.
Okay, thanks very much.
No, thank you. Okay, we've already covered the MPIC contract. We're on to number 12, Sunday hours of operation for the East Milton Wine and Spirits and the Central Liquor Market.
Apparently
Mark.
there's a change in the state law allowing earlier openings.
Yes, effective, I think it's October 3rd, 2014.
Okay.
Information we have indicates that there's not really any discretion on the part of the board. It's
Right.
mandatory if the right paperwork is filed.
Yeah. So propose to acknowledge change in the Sunday business hours for East Milton Wine and Spirits and Central Liquor Mart from noon to 6 p.m. To 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. and forward the pertinent paperwork to the Alcoholic Beverage Control Commission.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. On to boards and committees. This is,
I'll move to reappoint the following members to
I
the...
think we have a revised recommendation on this. I know we have one in the
Yeah.
materials, but we have a corrected recommendation. Do we have it in writing?
It's,
It's going to be a 2-year appointment, and the committee is, it's a trust fund, it's not a committee.
trustees.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to reappoint the following trustees of the Affordable Housing Trust to serve through November 2016. Tom Callahan, Julie Creamer, Philip Murphy, Frank Davis, Tom Hurley, and Bill Clark.
Not Bill Clark.
Not Bill Clark?
Bill has
He's
enough on
just
his
the
plate,
lia-
so
He's just the liaison to that committee. He's not an actual trustee.
it's just an error in the original motion.
Okay, and not Bill Clark.
Right. I'll second.
Any discussion?
The only thing I just want to bring up is it's kind of odd, the way that the way that the town meeting warrant article was voted was very, as opposed to the way other towns have their article for these trust funds, which is very detailed. Ours just simply adopted the Mass General Law. Problem is, there's a lot of things within the Mass General Law that are subjective that you can, and one of them is the size of the committee. It has to be a minimum of 5, it can be as big as you want it, where our authorizing article was silent on it. It's kind of unclear as to who decides. We think it's probably the trust itself that can decide how big the trust can be in terms of members. It's just not clear.
Many trustee members?
How many trustees, yeah. And there are a bunch of other things that were unclear when we had our first meeting, that because we don't have a definitive...
Did you have a first meeting? Or did you have a last meeting?
We didn't per se have a meeting, we just had an informational session with Kathleen O'Donnell, just to kind of get an understanding as to what the committee was. So we weren't actually posted for an actual meeting. So it was just a kind of question and answer session.
Well, it sounds like that if there's need for clarification or anything, we can address that down the road, if
Yeah.
it be at town meeting or
Yeah.
in some other context.
Yeah, I mean, the trustees may be coming back at some point in time to ask this, because presumably the selectmen would have to vote that again, I would assume.
Well, and we've already talked about the fact that we know the trust has no funds right now, but we've already voted to submit an article to the May town meeting seeking an appropriation from one-time money for this purpose. We don't have the Community Preservation Act. We don't have a good funding source for this trust.
That's right.
So we'll need to probably use free cash for it. And we've indicated we'd like to seek a substantial appropriation, and obviously the warrant committee will weigh in on that. But,
Right, to
but
give
we'll be
some
looking for
decency
something pretty substantial to get this group off to a good
Right.
start, because this is such an important priority for this board and for the planning board as well.
Well, in light of the fact we just passed a housing production plan and it got approved, the Affordable Housing Trust, well, for communities that have them, is very instrumental in helping implement a plan like that, and that would be the goal. That being said, it's a pretty broad trust in terms of what its powers are. It can buy property, it can sell property, it can go in, it can
Loan
enter into
money?
it can loan money, it can borrow money. So it can
give
have
grants.
programs, it can have employees. It's pretty, and all of this without the approval of town meeting.
I've seen what it did actually in the town of Easton, and it's amazing.
Oh yeah, they did the
Yeah.
shovel works project in Easton. Yeah.
Just so many buildings downtown were renovated with this money.
It's community preservation money, but kind of funneling in through.
That's correct.
But we can fundraise on our own if we want to. Private donations. We can invest money. We can. I'm sure we will use the town treasurer, but there's not even a requirement that we use the town treasurer to be the custodian of our funds. So it's.
And it's going to be a hugely important issue going forward, given the fact that property prices are actually higher right now than they were at the height of the boom in 2006.
Right.
And people are just not able to afford houses anymore again.
Right. So the goal, obviously, the trust is to further the affordable housing within the town of Milton.
Yeah, and to build on our effort to get the housing plan in place.
Right.
We have some very good people on this board.
You're excellent people. Yeah.
Tom Callahan, in particular, is going to be a great resource for this board.
Yeah.
Well, Frank Davis's background is in banking,
Yeah.
and Tom's obviously affordable housing, as well as Julie Kramer's an attorney and with a vast housing background.
And you've worked with a lot of housing authorities, too.
Right.
So I think we have a great group of trustees. We need to get them some money so they can start doing some things, and that's our next goal for the spring. We've already told the warrant committee we'll be coming looking for money. Okay, so do we have, we had a second on that motion. Any other discussion? Then all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous. Okay, our next item is a report on the Mass Municipal Association's conference from a couple of weeks ago. In particular, one of the sessions, and Tom and I sat in on this same session, and it was a
Very good
discussion.
conference.
It was, and it was a good discussion about the charter change process and going to hiring, interviewing town administrator, town manager, depending on what form of government you have in a particular town. But a lot of the discussion in the charter change meeting was about towns that want to change their form of government, and it seemed like quite a number of them who were represented at this conference did want to go either in the direction of a stronger town administrator or to a town manager. And one of the things that we were told was that the Mass Municipal Association has a form of government committee that will send a volunteer member of that committee out to towns to give them some advice on how to go through the process.
Because clearly, it's as well as an administrative process, it's a political process as well. It has political implications, and you've got to sell it to town meeting, and there's a lot of moving parts in it. it's not just a town manager, but it's all those responsibilities you're given to that town manager or town administrator, and whether there's any other changes you want to make or want to put forward, to propose to be made, and if you try and bite off too much, that can have ramifications. You bite off too much and you get none. So, we should have that discussion in terms of what we want to do by talking to the government study committee, and then this consulting group that the MMA has. I think we definitely should talk to them about.
Yeah, bring them in. Yeah.
So speaking of the government study committee, one thought would be to have the MMA's person come in and talk at a joint meeting with both us and the government study committee. In talking with Rick Neely at the town meeting, he said the government study committee really views this issue of going to the stronger town administrator as one that they've already recommended to us. They did give a job description, which, a year and a half ago. So we can still invite them to come in, but they are focused on a lot of other things now, the 3 versus 5 member board, the elected versus appointed treasurer, or the audit committee. So they view this particular issue of the town administrator's role as something they've already put forward. Some of the notes that I took as we were listening to that session was that the people who spoke, there was one who was a town manager, I think is it Dedham?
He was in Dedham. He's now in Foxborough, is it?
Okay. He and some of the other speakers did talk about the fact that there's a strong trend towards the town manager form of government.
Yes.
But and I think this might have come up in response to a question Tom asked them, most managers want centralized authority, and in particular centralized finance operations. So that's something that if you're going to go to a town manager form of government, it would be best to have that in place, and we don't currently have that in place. We have widespread boards and elected officials that have different fiefdoms, and we don't have centralized operations, but that is something the government study folks are still looking at. The question I think for us would be, well, first we should probably decide, do we want to invite the MMA representative to come to one of our meetings and talk with us? And secondly, maybe it depends on how that goes. Do we want to submit have town council start drafting an article to submit in January, since it's fast approaching, for an article for the May town meeting for whatever route we might choose procedurally, to start going towards the stronger town administrator form of government. The people who are watching, we've already started delegating more duties to the town administrator. And when we talk about strong town administrator, we're talking about the form of government, not any particular individual in the office at any given time. We're just talking about what duties rest with the board versus what rests with the town administrator. And right now, we have many that rest with the board and that need to come to a meeting. We have been delegating some of them, but there's limits on what we can delegate without going through a more formal process.
Right.
Is this something you'd expect a quick response on, if we did bring the MMA guy in?
It's a long process. There's 2 ways to do it. One's a home rule petition.
But I think you're asking about the availability
Yeah,
of
to put an
somebody
article in for the May town meeting, we'd want to get them in here soon.
Yes, I think we would, yeah.
I think we'd want to get somebody into maybe one of the early December meetings, if we could do that.
And then what would your article look like? Sorry, Tom, cut you off.
Well, I think that's what the MMA might be helping us on, but you were starting to answer it.
Well, the process is either a home rule petition or a charter commission. It seems like more people, when they do it voluntarily, use the home rule petition because it's a little more streamlined. The charter commission, you actually elect a charter commission. The charter commission then meets and decides what the changes should be, puts it forward to town meeting.
They're elected by the people? Or?
Yes. And then after that, the charter change is voted by.
Yeah, so home rule petition makes more sense.
Home rule petition, then, you get voted by town meeting. Then once we get approval back, then it will go on the ballot. So either way, it hits a ballot.
Well, and then there's the question of, well, do we just go forward with this one issue, or do we try to wind in wherever I don't know where the government study committee will be coming out on the 3 versus 5 member board of selectmen, or on the audit committee or the treasurer or the other issues that they're looking at. So we probably start with one that there's been a lot of broad support for right now through the government study committee. I think through this board, we've indicated we favor going to more delegation of duties from the board to the day-to-day management of the town. So the question is, depending on the timing of the government study committee and when they might recommend 3 versus 5 members, maybe they'll recommend staying at 3, but if they do recommend going to 5, should we bring them both to the same town meeting and try to go through the process for both at the same time?
And I think hopefully that consulting group can help us with that decision, but I guess a lot depends on the experiences of other towns in terms of how politically charged our, because again, you don't want to lose sight of, let's get the foundation built first and then kind of build around it one at a time, as opposed to risk losing both of them.
Right.
Because one is just too controversial.
Right.
I mean, I can't see that 3 versus 5 is controversial, but you never know.
You never know. It'll be interesting to see where they come out on that. On that, I don't know what their recommendation, if they've even had a further discussion about it yet.
Right.
But I mean, we're not forgetting that it's just a recommendation to us. We can reject it immediately.
Sure, if you want, we can.
Yeah, I assume they'll come in and make a presentation.
Listen to the
we'll
pros and cons.
Talk about it, and
Yeah. So it's not like they come in, make their recommendation, and then we're going to town meeting to get it approved.
Right.
It's up
Yeah,
to us if
we'll
we
see-
want to go
we'll
to
see
town
what
meeting.
what we think when it comes in.
Yeah. I just wanted to be clear that that was the procedure.
I agree.
It appears that more larger towns have the 5-member. It appears that towns with town managers have the 5 members opposed to the 3-member, but there's no necessarily any rhyme or reason. There are exceptions, plenty of exceptions to that rule. So
Yeah, and we probably all have different views. I mean, I think going to the stronger town administrator is more important than whatever we decide on the 3 versus 5-member board.
Right. I agree.
Okay, so it sounds like we have a consensus to invite the MMA
Yes.
committee to send a representative to try to set that up. Then the next item is, this is a lengthy motion, a release of some executive session minutes from 2012.
Off you go, Tom. You're good
Okay.
at this.
I'll propose to release the following 2012 executive session minute meetings to the public. January 18th, February 2nd, parenthetically item 4 withheld, February 16th, parenthetically item 2 withheld, February 28th, item 3 and 4 withheld, March 8th, March 14th, item 4 withheld, March 22nd, March 29th, item 3 withheld, April 5th, April 17th, May 8th, item 3 withheld, May 14th, item 1 withheld, May 31st, June 6th, June 21st, item 2 and item 3 withheld, July 11th, withheld, July 18th, item 2 and 7 withheld, July 19th, item 2 and 3 withheld, August, there's no date on this August one, August, and then just item 1 and 2 withheld.
Why don't we skip that one and we'll come back to it the next round.
September 4th, item 2 withheld, September 7th, withheld, September 20th, item 4 withheld, October 22nd withheld, October 24th withheld, November 1st, November 15th, November 29th, items 3, 4, and 5 withheld, December 6th, item 1 withheld, and December 20th.
Do we have a second?
I'll second, yeah.
I think the ones that say, October 22nd withheld, October 24th withheld, I think that means that nothing from those dates
Nothing
are
is released. That's the only way I'm reading that, yes.
Okay, so we probably don't even need to include them since the motion is to release.
Yeah.
Okay, so just with that clarification. Any discussion?
So the August one is being withheld, right?
The August, we don't have a date, so why don't we, so we don't, there's really.
Right.
We'll be looking at more later on in
Just put it on
executive
the
session
next-
tonight and in the next couple of
just put it
meetings.
on
So
the
we'll put it on the
next
next
agenda.
one, and
Yeah.
we'll get to it, release it separately if we need to. Okay, then, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous. Town administrators report.
Yes, Madam Chair, I'd like to inform the board that a comprehensive permit application was filed with the Board of Appeals on November 6th for the Randolph Ave 40B project. They will be having the Board of Appeals will be having its first organizational hearing on December 2nd. Responses to that comprehensive permit application are due to the Board of Appeals on November 21st. I'll be setting a meeting with our consultant, Kathleen O'Donnell, and the department heads to issue a report to the Board of Appeals outlining the town's concerns with that 40B project as proposed.
Okay, and similar to what we've done with the current one that's pending before us regarding Elliott Street. And for the benefit of the public who are watching, you know, the comprehensive permit, this is a one-stop shop essentially in front of the Zoning Board of Appeals, and under 40B, the benefit is for affordable housing, but the drawback to it is that a lot of the town bylaws and other regulations are essentially trumped for the most part. There's some exceptions, but so it's important that our department heads bring any issues that they view as something that should be brought to the Board of Appeals. It's important that we bring them to the board and make sure that they get vetted through the process, and that any issues and anything that might either need to be addressed through the comprehensive permit or to be considered by the board in how the Board of Appeals, not this board, is the one that makes the decision, but we're essentially making sure that our department heads have the resources that they need and are bringing public safety, stormwater, wetlands, environmental, any of those issues to the boards. Traffic is a big one. Seems on any project in Milton, given all the cut-through traffic we have. So December 2nd is the...
December 2nd is the organizational hearing, but all responses are due to the Board of Appeals by November 21st. And if you want to speak at the December 2nd hearing, you do have to notify the Board of Appeals by November 21st.
Okay, and so for the current pending one on Elliott Street, when we submitted our response in July, we sent in a letter asking for permission for certain department heads and for boards and committees to come in and speak. So I assume we'll do the same thing.
That's correct.
We didn't have Kathleen involved at that stage, so she might have a different approach to take to this one. We'll see, but probably the same concept. We'll submit written comments and we'll request time for department heads to be on the docket and give their comments and thoughts. It's really the town's obligation to bring all these issues, because if we don't bring them, then, you know, there's no one else really to raise them. And we need to make sure that we're bringing traffic and other issues to the attention of the body that will make the decision. Okay, so we'll have two of them pending currently. I know that'll keep our department heads busy. Is there anything else for the town administrator's report?
No, that's it, Madam Chair.
The only things I wanted to mention are that on this Friday at the Milton Arts Center, Friday the 14th from 7 to 9 p.m., the Falcone companies are going to hold an informational meeting for the plans about the theater building, so that would be a good opportunity for people to go and listen to what's intended and what the plans are. I'm sure they'll have some diagrams and designs available. And also, yesterday, Marvin Gordon mentioned this already, but Frank Stout and the members of the American Legion did a very nice job organizing the Veterans Day observance. So
for a change, it wasn't freezing cold. It was nice.
It was a beautiful day for it. The weather was great. But it was a very nice ceremony, and they do a nice job both on Memorial Day and on Veterans Day. And they're volunteers, so we thank them for all their efforts. Does anyone have anything to report?
The only thing is Anne Marie and myself went to the ribbon cutting at Blue Hills Bank. Was that last week? I guess it was.
Yes, it was.
It was last week. Very nice ceremony, even though it was pouring rain. It's a good bank. You know, for people that don't know, it used to be Hyde Park Savings Bank, and you know, they've rebranded themselves. They've grown a lot. Now they're a publicly traded banking institution as opposed to, you know, privately held. And they're really the first community bank that we've had in Milton in many, many years. I mean, we used to be all community banks at one time, and for at least the past 15 years, I think we've been
the big banks.
The big banks, and that's it. So now we do have a community bank back in Milton, and they're, you know, a welcome addition, I think.
Sounds like it was a nice ceremony.
It was.
Madam Chair, if I could also just publicly recognize Paula Rizzi for her outstanding work with yesterday's festivities as well. She
Yeoman's
was
work.
instrumental in putting that all together. As you know, we are understaffed in the Selectman's office at this time, and she did go above and beyond, so I would like to publicly thank her.
Yes, I was
Good
remiss
job.
in not mentioning that. I'm glad you did. So thank you, Paula, for everything that you did to work with the Legion to put that together, and for so many other things. Anyone, anything else? Any future agenda items? What about the FY16, I mean, not the FY16, the 5-year financial plan?
It's
We are ready,
done.
yep, we're ready to go, so we're hoping.
The 19th?
Yes.
Okay. That would be great.
We're gonna
Who
reach
put
out
it
to the
together?
schools.
We're going to reach out to the school, the 5-year financial forecast.
Yeah, who put that together?
There was a team of Amy Dexter, your town accountant, Tom Hurley, Glenn Pavlicek, and myself. Yes. So I will reach out to the schools and invite them to your November 19th meeting, and I will reach out to the chair of the warrant committee as well and invite him for the presentation.
Okay, great. What about any other boards? Have they been involved?
There were no other boards per se involved at this point, just kind of, next time we update it, I think probably a good idea to go out to, but at the first time through, just logistically trying to come up with everything is a bear. So,
It's a working document, and we will continue to tweak it as we move forward.
yeah, I mean, it's more than tweak because you're going to roll it forward a year every year, so.
Yep, major changes.
All right, then, the next item is an executive session, but we also have the Governor Stoughton Fund, so why don't we recess this meeting, if that's agreeable?
Yep.
And we'll call to order a meeting of the trustees of the Governor Stoughton Fund. The first item on our agenda is a request from Pulte Homes of New England for an extension of the due diligence period. And
I'll move to extend the due diligence period for Pulte Homes of New England for an additional 60 days to allow the Mass Historical Commission's final review and approval of the Phase 1A survey report.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? I know we have our town planner here and the town administrator. Is there anything you'd like to report on this?
I don't have anything additional to report, other than at your November 19th meeting, we will also have a trustees of the Governor Stoughton meeting. We will have the consultant in that did the archaeological reconnaissance survey up at the town farm. So they will be in on your November 19th meeting to go over that.
Great.
I believe you've all received a draft copy of that, and so the consultant will give you a brief executive summary and answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, so that'll be a week from today,
That'll
on the
be
19th.
your November 19th meeting.
And this motion would extend the due diligence period until January 6th.
That's correct.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous. We also have a request from the food pantry for grant.
I'll make a motion to approve a grant in the amount of $15,000 to the Milton Food Pantry to underwrite the cost of the pantry's 2014 dairy voucher program.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Just a question, is this, well, two, I guess, and the one we always ask is how much money's left in the...
$377,000.
Okay. And is this consistent with the prior years?
Yes, last year you gave them $15,000, yes.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous. Okay, then we will, motion to adjourn the Governor Stoughton
So moved.
meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we're back in regular session, and I will move to enter executive session to conduct a strategy session in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, police chief's contract, to conduct a strategy session in preparation for contract negotiations, Yulin Rink management contract, and to review 2013 executive session meeting minutes for release to the public, believing that having these discussions in open session would have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the body, and to return to open session to adjourn.
Second.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Mr. Hurley?
Yes.
And myself, yes. All right, we're now in executive session.